Welcome back. You're on your most authoritative news analysis platform, Newsfile. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And my guests who do the first and second rounds, and I think the third, are here. Engineer Dr. Mark Oliver Kevel. He is the Acting Director General of NITA. Derek Lai is Technology Consultant. Isaac Boamanyakon is lawyer. He's MP Efia, Member Finance, Environment, Science and Technology and Housing Committees of Parliament. Later we'll be joined by Dr. Victor Doke, who is lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. He's conflict, peace and security expert. Muftal Nabila Abdullahi is assistant editor, Joy News. Benjamin Kofi Kwashi, His Excellency, is Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa. But we begin a first session with the Jata, Samuel Nete George, Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation. Minister, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, my brother, and a pleasure to join you. Good morning to your panelists, my co-panelists, and to our viewers and listeners.
This week, some people have been fighting me on social media. Well, that was last week because people see you abrasive and so on. But some may see you in a different light when you want to assert what is rightfully your right. So let's begin and see if this discussion will get a Jata style. I'm sure even though we tabled NITA to speak about, but we certainly cannot have this discussion without first talking about the anti-LGBT, you don't like us calling it that way, but the anti-LGBT bill that has been passed by Parliament. You have been at this for 5 years, right?
Pretty much so. I made my first comments on this in 2021 and indicated that I was going to bring a bill. The first bill was tabled in September 2021. So yes, 5 years.
Right. You must be happy because in the last few months or even towards the end of last year, people began to ask that, what happened to your promise? You actually threatened that you may resign if the president does not, keep his word to pass it as quickly as possible.
That's true. Samson, I'm a relieved man, but I'm thankful to the leadership of Parliament and thankful to the Speaker of Parliament for the leadership he has shown on this. This whole journey from 2021 would have been impossible without the leadership of the Right Honourable Alban Sumana Kingsford-Bagbin, who's being a staunch bastion of support in executing this agenda. To the leadership of the House, I say thank you for believing in us. And to the leadership of my new committee, people may not know that I'm now a member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. Since I was taking off the Communications and Information Committee when I was appointed minister. And so to my chairman, Honorable Shaibu, I want to say a very big thank you for the leadership he's shown and the dedication to making sure that this bill passes. I've been on record to say that President Mahama will know no peace if he doesn't sign the bill.
Right.
A number of people have taken me on and said, well, you've not given him any hell. He's made you a minister, and so he's bought your silence. And my question has been simple. What was there before President Mahama to sign? If there was no bill before him, and something, the legal question was a very nuanced one, and I believe it was even a conversation I may have had with you privately as well, where the question of whether the bill died with the last Parliament or not, because my original belief was that Parliament was functus officio once we had passed it and done the third reading in February 2024. And once we had done the transmittal, unless and until the president had activated, I don't really remember the provision, I think it's Article 106 or so, where he can come back to Parliament and state his objections to specific provisions in what we had passed, Parliament was done with its job. And so long as that had not happened, I believed that all that was left was for us to have presidential assent. However, my view did not carry the day. And the view was that once that Parliament ended and it was not accented, even though Parliament had done the third reading, what applies to bills that are still in work will apply to this bill. And so we had to relay the bill again in September last year. And like I said, I'm grateful to the committee leadership for the speed with which they carried through this. It took us 3 years under the previous leadership of the committee, under Honorable Ayimedu, to get to this point. It's taking us barely, give or take, about 8 months under Honorable Shaibu to get here. And Parliament has passed this bill yesterday. Now it would have to go through the processes in Parliament and then be transmitted to the President. I'm hoping that by next week, it can be transmitted to the President. And then we will demand of the President to sign the bill. Not because Sam George says so, but because he made that commitment.
You hope and pray that there will not be a green letter that will say cease and desist from transmitting the bill to the President, right?
I don't expect such a letter. I expect President Mahama to be a man of his word.
That was intended.
In the unlikely event that a letter of that nature comes
up. That was
up.
intended to get you to smile.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, just hold on quickly and listen to Mahama Yarga, the majority leader in Parliament yesterday.
Media raise strong issues because they think that we are violating the right to free expression. Professionals such as lawyers raise strong issues that we are violating their professional freedom and violating the rights of people to legal services. Then academics, universities. I was on the committee, you remember, the previous Parliament, and these civil society groups made a very strong case. So what the committee is trying to do is to narrowly set out those exceptions where when you speak, you will not be considered as promoting or supporting LGBTQ.
He told Parliament that there was a lot of pressure previously. There were parliamentarians, MPs from the UK, he spoke about some other place in Europe where pressure was brought to bear that this should never be passed. So how did you manage to surmount that?
Samson, I think that I've been very clear in my advocacy and with my colleagues that we are not minded by what anyone will say. We are not minded by what the opinions of any external group is. Our consideration is for the people of Ghana. We are lawmakers in Ghana. Our sovereignty is imperative. And so, yes, we listen to our international partners. We listen to their concerns, but we'll be guided by what is right for Ghana. I don't think that the UK House of Commons consults the opinion of Ghanaians when they're passing legislation in the House of Commons.
They don't come to you to beg for money. You go there begging for money. That's why they're able to do those things to you.
Well, I think that given what we have seen over the last 15, 16 months or 17 months of this administration, it is clear that many of the times we go to beg for money simply because of the misappropriation and maladministration of our financial situation. We've not seen that under the watchful leadership of K-Salato Fawcett at the Finance Ministry, we've managed what kind of aid we need. And I think that we can even get better. And so, if it means us having to cut our code according to our size and be more prudent in our expenditure and not borrow for frivolous activities, then I think that if that is the price this bill is going to make us pay, the Ghanaian people and our children are going to be better off.
Okay. Perhaps they actually manage to squeeze you to do it the way they want, to give a semblance of an anti-LGBT bill that's not exactly or does not have teeth to bite. According to the minority, that this may be what has been achieved. Let's listen to Ntum Fojo.
And dictated that if they don't introduce this clause, this amendment, and insert, is that amendment proposed, add the following new sub-clause, subsection 2, does not apply to. The subsection 2 that does not apply to is a subsection that prescribes the support, advocacy, promotion of LGBT activities. And you are saying that they can undertake all those activities. And so long as he's a lawyer, he can promote. So long as he's going to make a representation in court, he can promote. So long as he is an academic, he can promote. So long as he's a non-governmental body organization and a development partner, he can promote and support LGBT activities. That is bizarre. That is dangerous. If you don't want to pass this bill, nobody's forcing you. But it is most dishonest to want to rush through processes and then pass things that are even more dangerous. The provision of medical, surgical, psychological, or counseling services in accordance with accepted professional practice, which exemption was not part of the bill you wanted Akufo-Addo to sign, and F, the reporting of news or current affairs by a media house or a journalist in the ordinary course of journalism, and the performance of a public health functions, including HIV and AIDS prevention, testing, treatment, and care, which same testament was given by the Ghana AIDS Commission before the full glare of this country in our live telecast that they provide condoms, lubricants, and other aids for persons living with HIV who are known LGBT members, so that they will go about their absurd sexual experiences. And yet this government wants to make assumption under this law. That is not the law we sponsored in the 8th Parliament. That is not the law we are sponsoring today. If the government is minded to pass their own law of a sort, which will grant all these exceptions, the very places we are trying to clamp down on, that can be a separate law. But so long as the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill is concerned, these exceptions are alien. These are not the exceptions in the Ugandan bill that was passed. These are not the exceptions in the Senegalese bill that was passed. These are not the exemptions granted in any of the countries that we are going to host next week, who have passed these laws and whom we are proud to host them in this very chamber. We are planning to host them. When they passed their bill, they didn't give any of these exceptions, because that is where the real problem is. These are the people sponsoring, supporting, making these activities rather attractive behind the scenes and even sometimes overtly. And so if I find it highly problematic, any attempt by this House to push any of these exceptions in, we will resist it. And if the House will use their majority numbers to push it through, I, as a sponsor, will advise myself accordingly.
Very well. You are entitled to advise yourself. Yes, Majority Leader.
NDC is passing.
So the accusation centrally is that you have weakened this bill. It's not what you took to Parliament.
Something. In all humility, I would say that on this bill, I don't think there's been anybody more vocal than myself in the last 5 years in our country. At a point in time, you mentioned Sam George. The next thing that follows was LGBTQ. For the better part of the 5 years when we're doing this, Honorable Anyenini, I've always given him credit that he was the only MPP member of Parliament who was bold enough to sign the legislation. But his commentary was very muted because of the regime at the time. I hear him, and I had a very lengthy conversation with him yesterday, and I made the point very well known to him, my position on this. If we say we have a principle, let's stick to that principle. There are things we play politics with, and there are things we don't play politics with. It hurts me to say that Anyenini and a number of the NPP people who are speaking on this matter are simply playing politics. It's about trying to whitewash President Akufo-Addo's refusal to sign the bill and trying to make excuses for him. They had always believed and thought that the NDC was not committed to signing this bill or passing this bill and getting it before the president. This whole agitation is political. And let me explain why I say it's political. The bill that myself and Anyenini sent to Parliament in clause 9 had a provision, and this is how it reads: subject to the Constitution, a person shall not produce, procure, market, broadcast, disseminate, publish, or distribute through a medium, and it goes on and on. We subjected that entire clause on advocacy. And the heading of that clause is prohibition of propaganda of, promotion of, and advocacy for activities prohibited under this act. We subjected that entire clause to the Constitution. Now, conversations have gone on, and in those conversations, and these are not private conversations, public conversations, that if you're subjecting this to the Constitution, and the reason why we introduced that phrase subject to the Constitution in that clause was to ensure that the bill had come under the accusation that it was taking away constitutional rights. And as sponsors, we had always said our bill will not and cannot, any bill that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void. And so there is no way that will happen. And so, Samson, if you would allow me, just set, there are 8 exemptions that have been done. And the reason why this was done was we said, look, today the bill is before Parliament. Sam George can be called to explain the bill and explain what the rationale behind the bill is, or a clause in the bill is. Roxanne can be called, and Tim Fojo can be called. But after Parliament passes the bill and the President assents to it, the interpretation of that bill is no longer going to be left to Sam George or any member of Parliament. It's now going to be in the bosom of a judge. And so you must make sure that if you are making provisions and exemptions, they are spelled out clearly on the face of the law. And so the subsection 2 that has been introduced says, it does not apply to A, the provision of legal advice or legal representation. Samson, the most heinous crime in our country is high treason. High treason. If you are charged with high treason today, you are entitled per the Constitution to have legal representation and seek legal advice. So if a lawyer is representing a person who is standing accusation or standing trial for an offense prohibited or an act prohibited under this legislation, is that person entitled to legal advice or legal representation?
In fact, if you are accused of murder and brought before a court and you don't have a lawyer, you must be given a lawyer by the state. Otherwise, there will not be a trial. In fact, Absolutely. If you appeared before the court and you pleaded that you are guilty, the court is enjoined by law to enter that you are not guilty, so that the case will go on its merit before you are convicted.
Exactly. So if we introduce a provision that spells out clearly, because lawyers reached out, the Ghana Bar Association reached out and said, so if our members begin to give advice to persons who are standing trial for acts prohibited under this act, are they liable for promotion and advocacy? And we said, no, the constitutional right to a legal representation cannot be overridden by this act. So state it clearly that the provision of legal services or legal representation is not considered advocacy. 2, submissions or representations made to a court, tribunal, parliament, commissions of inquiry, or a body exercising judicial or quasi-judicial functions. Samson, once again, you appear before the Committee of Parliament. And I told Tim Fojo this. In 2022 and 23, when we held the public hearings, there were pro-LGBTQ groups that appeared before Parliament to make a case against the Family Values Bill. Now, they made submissions on camera before Parliament. Would you then say that if there was another hearing of Parliament where such individuals showed up to appear before Parliament on the invitation of Parliament, or in court, a person is standing trial and one of these groups decides to enter as an interested party to make a submission before the court, should we then cause the arrest of that person as being an advocate for stating a position before a body like Parliament? Absolutely, that cannot be the case, because there are certain immunities when you appear before Parliament, for example, and give testimony before Parliament. So again, state that. So this is not a blanket exemption. It is before specific institutions. C, the publication of an academic, scientific, or medical opinion. Samson, you cannot say that, again, the right to academic opinion and expressions of same are constitutional rights. And so what we do, and there is a difference between an academic piece and the opinion of a lecturer. When you say a piece is an academic piece, we know how there's a structure for academic pieces. They are published in journals, or even if they are not published in journals, but they are published. And there's a structure to an academic piece. There's a structure to a scientific piece. It appears it must meet the criteria for a scientific journal or a medical opinion. So these are specific and regulated pieces of work. That's the third one. D, the dissemination of information by governmental body, non-governmental organization, development partner, or other bodies engaged in the delivery of health services or health-related programs. So take, for example, and I have taken the UN system on publicly for some of the activities that they undertake, which are pro-LGBTQ. And I've stated emphatically that those are not health-related activities. So if you have UNICEF, for example, carrying out an outreach, because then we received UNICEF, UNESCO saying, okay, so the health-related programs we do on tuberculosis, on early childhood diseases, where do those sit in? And we said, we don't have a problem with that. Those are health-related. But when you go out and you want to begin to talk about promotion of LGBTQ rights, that's in our jurisdiction is not considered health-related. So again, you set the exemptions within a certain parameter. The boundaries are well defined. E, the provision, and this is one of the places where Anyenini seems to have a lot of issues, the provision of medical, surgical, psychological, or counseling services in accordance with accepted professional practice. Samson, if you are providing medical services today in Ghana, those services are regulated by the Ghana Medical Association. That's the Ghana Health Service. The Ghana Medical Association and the Ghana Health Service do not allow for conversion surgeries in Ghana. And that's why, even though we speak about medical, surgical, psychological, or counseling services, it doesn't end there. It puts the framework, the boundaries. It says in accordance with accepted professional practice. So for all of these practices, you have accepted professional standards that are set not by the individual. And I said to Anyenini, he's a reverend minister. Assume that a member of his church came to him and said, Pastor, I have a challenge with homosexuality, and he offers counseling. Would he be held to be advocating for LGBTQ? But he's offering counseling. So someone is offering counseling. What is the accepted professional practice in Ghana? Per the laws of Ghana, homosexuality is frowned on. So counseling that says, look, what you are doing is not permissible by the law. You need help, find help. That counseling cannot be criminalized. And it's important to draw the distinctions there. A person who goes for medical goes for a medical procedure, goes to see their doctor and says, I want to have a sex change surgery. That is not acceptable professional practice in Ghana. And so if a doctor carries out that medical or surgical procedure, that doctor is in violation of the law. This is pretty clear. I really don't see where the confusion is. Then the sixth, reporting of current affairs or news by a media house or journalists in the ordinary course of journalism. And Samson, we've had several engagements. Joy has asked me, several people have asked me several times that, so if a media house reports on something touching on LGBTQ, will that journalist be held liable for advocacy? But that's why we say in the ordinary course of journalism, again, setting the boundaries. So Samson does, Samson's take, for example, on a matter involving LGBTQ. That is an opinion piece. That's what Samson's take is. But in that opinion piece, does he set the boundaries as within what is ethically agreed by the Ghana journalism of GJA as an opinion piece, as a media report? That's where we are setting the boundaries. G, the performance of public health functions, including HIV and AIDS prevention, testing, treatment, and care. That really is on the Ghana AIDS Commission. The Ghana AIDS Commission has a responsibility to treat persons who are living with HIV with antiretroviral drugs and safe sex activities. I took them on at a committee hearing and said to them that when they begin to offer lubricants and condoms to groups of men having sex with men, that goes beyond the remit of the Ghana AIDS Commission, which is to deal with HIV patients and HIV prevention. And so they must work within the parameters of what their mandate is and not go beyond that because some donor has asked. And that's what we've done. And the last one, Samson, a communication privilege under the Evidence Act. Samson, we have a provision in the law that says a duty to report. During the hearings, I was asked a pointed question. So if someone goes to see his medical doctor and the person is suffering from an anal tear, and the doctor finds out that it is by way of gay sex, are we imposing a liability on the doctor to report his patient? And we said no. There are privileged conversations under the Evidence Act of Ghana. A doctor-patient relationship, lawyer-client relationship, pastor-congregant relationship. Such conversations are already protected and considered privileged under the Evidence Act. So these are the provisions that we've made. We've not imported any new thing. All of these exemptions we've created, Samson, are all constitutional provisions or derived from legislation that draw their powers and strength from the Constitution.
So the feeling was that the original provision that subjected this to the Constitution did not bring sufficient clarity.
Absolutely.
Now, because this was not the subject for discussion, so to speak, I need to get one thing clear out of the way. On the 15th of February 2024, Osahe Afenyomarkin rose to ask certain questions, and that led to shelving the third reading, or aborting the third reading. He spoke about why you can't jail a person over sexuality. And the major issues he raised are almost the same thing we are talking about now. He said, among other things, that a person should not be made to face jail simply because they are offering the services that you just mentioned, including for journalists, for media, and so on. You rose and said, hell no, this must not be allowed. So what changed?
Samson, I made the point then, and I make the point now. When Osahini said people were going to be jailed for that, I said his reading of the law was wrong, and that there were exemptions in that legislation that prohibited or exempted those persons, because I said it was subject to the Constitution. So my opposition to him was that he was misreading and misinterpreting the legislation. And for the avoidance of any doubt, if we've decided that, okay, let us spell out what those exemptions are, because I had always maintained that a journalist who was doing his journalistic work was not going to be liable for advocacy. A lawyer definitely offering services to a client in court could not have been said to be advocacy, because the Constitution enjoins that. And that's what my opposition to Afenyomarkin at the time was. Because up till today, if you look at the principle of what I have espoused here, I still maintain, like I said then, that you do not fall foul of the law if you are doing these things, because the law exempts, or the Constitution gives you a right to do those things.
Right.
What Afenyomarkin said was that the law would make you liable. We have once again reiterated the fact that the law does not make you liable for offering legal services, medical services, or reporting as a journalist, or any of the privileged conversations, or an academic. We have reiterated that position.
It was a lack of clarity around these questions that led the bill to be taken to a court. And you felt that was sponsored by the government then, to ensure that Akufo-Addo doesn't, sign it. So this kind of clarity vindicates that the original one, as you have shown us, was bad. And this is the best approach. And yet you were against the same thing.
I haven't said the previous one was bad. But let's be clear. President Akufo-Addo had the opportunity to have written back to Parliament to ask us for clarity. What he chose to do was issue a cease and desist. And in that cease and desist letter, and I have a copy of that letter here, Samson, That letter was dated, I think, it was dated from the then executive secretary. That letter was dated 18th March and says that they were aware of pending suits that were filed on the 7th of March. However, the cases only were filed on the 8th of March. So the letter actually references cases before they were even filed. And that's where there was a problem that, how is the presidency referencing a case, the case by Richard Sky and Dr. Amanda Odoi, even before the cases were filed? How did the presidency know that those cases were going to be filed at the registry of the court a day before? All right. So that's where the issue was. And something, President Akufo-Addo, again, had an opportunity when in December, I think, if I'm not mistaken, December 11th or 12th, the Supreme Court dispensed of all the 3 cases and gave a clear judgment. President Akufo-Addo was still president for almost 3 weeks. For 3 weeks post that, where there was no longer any legal question. The courts had cleared it. He could have signed the bill. Okay. He chose not to. Right. For reasons best known to him.
So as you can see, things will take just a bit of a different turn. We will plead with you because of the way we had agreed originally. Hold on, let's pick just few comments here and come to NITA. You deal with NITA briefly, we'll get to the jugular, and then you take leave of us to continue your meeting whilst we do the discussion. Yes, Boama, what do you say?
Samson, thank you. A very good morning to our cherished viewers and listeners, and also to my co-panelists. And to the Minister of Communications, Sammy, a very good friend and a brother. It's a very sad moment looking at where we've come from. And yesterday I was in Parliament throughout the process until we got to the stage where I personally believe that the majority were not going to listen to the views of the minority in terms of the amendments that we were doing to the existing bill under consideration. And our concerns are very simple. You see, when this LGBTI issue was tabled in 2021, all Ghanaians, everybody was in support of the bill. Because whether you are MPP, NDC, religious groups, all of us as Ghanaians were...
You may say many Ghanaians.
Oh, many, of Ghanaians. Course. Okay, many Ghanaians were added them to the fact that this kind of practice was abhorrent in our country. So the promoters of the bill were also bipartisan. We had people from the majority and the minority co-sponsoring the bill. Now you come to the point where when the bill was tabled and before Parliament, that is the 8th Parliament, concerns were raised by the majority as to the shape and the form of some of the clauses under consideration. And those in the minority then, which Sami happened to be one, and then the majority leader now, were very, very clear in their minds that this particular bill in its shape and form was fit for purpose for His Excellency the President to sign. Then it didn't happen because of legal issues back and forth. We have been discussing whether it was transmitted and presented to the President. We've had all that debate. And then Speaker Babri made a ruling that he would accept a reintroduction of the bill in the 9th Parliament.
And the right thing to do, really.
Exactly, of course. So Mahama Yaga has always said he disagrees with that position, but all of us, or majority of us, believe that the existing bill lapsed with the 8th Parliament.
That's right.
Now, in its reintroduction, all of us, from majority and minority, were on the discussion that the same bill that was presented to President Akufo-Addo to sign should be the bill that would just pass through Parliament. Because if the minority then are saying that the bill was fit for purpose, then once we've come into a new Parliament, they should present the same bill for presentation. Now that bill was presented, it was submitted to the Constitution committee, and then it comes with so many amendments to the clauses. Why? If you check the wordings of the amendments that were presented, it clearly tells you that it has been watered down. It clearly tells you that the bill that we wanted President Akufo-Addo to sign, upon further reflection, we think that it needed more work to be done. So why did we do politics with it in the first place? The entire LGBTI discussion in 2023-2024 was purely for political purposes. It was championed, the NPP government was made to, or was represented to mean that it was against the signing of that bill. But concerns were with the bill at the time. Now, fast forward to this new parliament, you present it, you smuggle in, and we're using the word smuggled because the clause 9 that has been reintroduced was not the same clause that was in the bill then. And what is the rationale behind the clause 9 that is being reintroduced? It is being reintroduced to water down on the issues that people who are promoters of the LGBTQI, what have you, are interested in seeing done. So we have literally ended doing the bidding of the concerns that those people who were out there were talking about. The issue about legal representation and the rest. Why do you need this bill to tell you that everybody that has a matter in court that needs legal representation cannot be said to be promoting the bill? Why? Which legal proposition can you use for the presentation of this bill to say that if someone has a matter before court and a lawyer is to represent him, that lawyer will be deemed to be a promoter of it? That's absurd. So you don't need that provision there. The concern sits within the C, D, E, G, and all the rest. And that is where you have the promoters of this.
But you know that the manner in which the bill was projected,
yes,
it was as if nobody is even allowed to attempt to say they will go to court to do anything around LGBTQ. Nobody should try to do anything. But the substantive question is, these amendments that have brought the refinement that we now talk about, don't you agree with Sam George that the original bill, when it subjected the exemptions, those portions to the Constitution,
yes,
was intended to achieve the same
not at all
purpose?
Not at all, Samson, not at all. Because if you subject it to the Constitution, we already have constitutional provisions that speaks to these matters. When you subject it into the legislation, then you are creating clear exemptions for those activities. And we are saying that if you look at...
So you are saying that the original subjection to the Constitution,
yes,
for these parts,
yes,
was okay?
Was okay.
There was no need to do anything about it.
Exactly the argument
so what was the fight that was led by your group, particularly Afenyomaki, on these same issues? What was the fight about?
In which one?
He consistently, remember that the third reading was actually blocked because he raised these issues.
Yes.
And then eventually, when he was unsuccessful and the bill got passed, these matters became the core of why it was before a court for challenge. Correct?
Yes. But the point I'm making, and we have always said now, is that the bill that was presented in 2024 for President Akufo-Addo to sign, in its shape and form, it's not the same bill that we have passed in Parliament today.
The bill that you have passed today,
yes,
the argument is that
it's
in the shape and form that you wanted.
And what did they say then?
Yes,
what did they say then?
Of course.
They should admit that they were disingenuous to the people of Ghana.
So if they admit, then will you also admit that you are being disingenuous by opposing what you wanted to have been done?
No. You see, when we are doing things, let's be very fair and candid to the people of Ghana, devoid of politics. If my brothers...
You guys are unable to do that.
Oh, so if they don't do that, then they should be able to admit
not
also...
Not they, I'm talking you people, politicians. You can't do that. You are displaying that right here. I'm
not displaying anything, Samson. I'm just indicating to you that it is for good reason that the bill that was passed in 2024 was presented in that form. Right. If we admit today that bill that was sent in 2024 lacked some clarity, and today, this is the provision we are bringing to provide that clarity. That is a different subject for conversation. But I'm saying, and it is the position of the minority, that clause 9, that is creating those exemptions, are not right. It is rather opening the floodgate for people to do the promotion.
But it was right you were pushing. you didn't get, now you have it.
Or if
it's no longer right because
not in this form.
Okay.
The areas that you were pushing were not the same areas that they have indicated.
Oh, please, if you read Afenyoman King's comments as in Parliament as published by the media, and I'm looking at one.
A good number of them were there.
Yeah, they were.
Yes, a good number of them. Number of them were there.
You can't jail someone, professionals, and all of these people. He actually projected the community sentencing as well, so that there are no custodial sentencing.
Yes.
Now we know that community sentencing bill will pass in this Parliament. One of the bills that I'm excited about because I've had time to champion it for a long time and actually made some inputs through Godfrey Dame for it. So I take just 2 minutes comment from the two of you.
30 seconds. Let me just wind up on this. So the final point I would like to make on this matter is that we should stop using politics, using these issues where all of us as Ghanaians are against for political gain. And then when you gain political advantage of it, you turn back and then mirror down, you water down on these matters only to suit an interest that you could, at the point in time that you sat there, use to even make the bill better.
Okay, thank you. Yes, just 2 minutes each. What do you have to say about this after all of that? I can spare you. We can move on if you don't want to make any comments. Yes, Oliver.
Well, I think Honorable Sam George has made it clear. Materially, there has not been any change. If you look at the materiality of the act that has been passed, structurally it's the same. Clarity has been brought to what constitutional suggestions that it was supposed to be subjected to. And the question I'll ask my honorable brother is it the case, is it their case that this clarity shouldn't have been brought to it? Is it the case that they still stand by the fact that professionals who offer services to this group of people should still be criminalized?
No, he's saying that you didn't need to provide any clarity on that because that is already in the Constitution, and the original has said that that provision was subject to the Constitution. The prohibitions that had been given, they said subject to the Constitution. So once they say subject to the Constitution or the provisions of the Constitution,
so how does
as a lawyer, if I did anything, you couldn't hold me.
So how does explicitly stating these things? How,
that's a good question.
Yes. How does it water the original text down?
Okay.
How does it water it down? That's the question that they will have to answer, because now they are out there saying that the original act has been watered down. Which particular text has watered the original text down?
Okay.
They've not been able to tell us.
All right.
Because they are still saying that they still agree with us that we should not criminalize professionals who offer services to this group of people. So I don't see where the noise is coming from.
Right. Derek.
I refuse to comment on this.
All right. Thank you very much. But Sam George, there are concerns that only 34 members of parliament were present. And as we know, you used to need a quorum of about 92. Now you need about 95. 92?
92.
Okay. So does that not pose a problem that someone will go to the court and say it should be struck down because of this?
The courts have ruled on the issue of quorum, if you remember, in
Once
Parliament.
it was not raised.
This was sometime in 2024, just around the elections. You remember, Afenyoman King and the MPP went to court. What will determine quorum is what the attendance sheet of Parliament was. How many members of Parliament were there when the House commenced business? Quorum is a continuum. That's the position of the courts. And so if there was quorum when the House began its business for the day, this business is part of the business of the day. And so as at the time that was being done, so long as there was quorum at the time the House started its business, the House had quorum. I mean, thanks to the MPP and a number of court cases that they...
So long as the quorum matter was never raised, it cannot be raised again.
It wasn't also raised. You can't raise it again.
All right.
But Samson, let me just end by saying this. Let us be clear. all the kerfuffle and then the complaints you are hearing is simply about politics of equalization. People think, because if you listen to my brother Isaac Boama, is that, oh, but if you didn't do it then, why are you doing it now? Like Dr. Kebo asked, what has actually substantially changed? If you agree that this clarity is needed, if Afenyo Marking at the time thought that we should create those clarities because in his opinion, they created a liability and that has been done, how does that water it down? I would say that it has actually brought Sobolo to the table and made it spicier. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. We'll take a quick break and then return to the questioning of the NITA bill. But as you know, our parliament has once again passed the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, the so-called Anti-LGBTQ legislation, after a legislative journey that began in 2021. From injunctions at the Supreme Court to presidential hesitation and fierce public debate, this bill has tested the limits of Ghana's democracy, morality, legislative patience, but the second passage is coming with a controversy. Has Sam George been able to settle that controversy this morning in this studio? We leave the question of whether Ghana has finally found clarity, or call it moral clarity, or this is just a merely political compromise that we have achieved. We'll be right back. We leave that to you. This Newsfile is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. So we will get to the questioning of the NITA bill. Actually, by the time this show was arranged, we did not know about any, human sexual bill being passed, and somehow that has managed to take quite a bit of our time. So as you may know by now, our digital economy stands at the crossroads. The proposed National Information Technology Authority Bill 2025 seeks to transform that authority from a policy implementer into a powerful regulator, licensing ICT businesses, certifying professionals, and approving mergers and sales. The supporters say it will sanitize the tech space and protect consumers, but the critics are warning that it could choke innovation, drive startups underground, and make Ghana less attractive for investment. So we are seeking to find out if this bill is intended for regulation or strangulation. And that's why the minister is with us. I want Derek to set up their key concerns and then have the minister quickly deal with them.
All right, so Samson, thank you. Thank you for this engagement. I think in summary, on this NITA bill, we all know why. NITA has been there since the last 18 years and set up by an Act of Parliament 771. And I mean, in the last couple of years, being in the space, I mean, some came into the space as well as minister, and he's given a rationale that he met NITA with a bank balance of 25 cedis. I mean, this is an agency that has been around for 18 years, and with that bank balance, I'm sure all of us on the panel are richer than NITA. Over the last couple of years, he's spoken about the fact that he wants to be able to shape NITA into a regulator that is much more functional in the space, and I'm sure trying to put it in a much more profitable position. So somewhere September last year, the ministry put out a notice on their website, which basically highlighted the bills. I think it's about 15 bills in total. So the NITA bill forms one of them. And so, I mean, for some of us, the kind of work that we do, I picked it up, we worked on it, we make inputs. The ministry called, I think, a couple of consultations that happened. Then subsequently, if you notice, around late November, early December, the focus was on the misinformation bill, then the cybersecurity bill as well. That's what basically formed a major part of the major conversations on X and socials and all of those other places. Then subsequently, this one just kicked in somewhere a couple of weeks ago. And it was because of a number of issues. I mean, one, the bill was, there was a bill, the part of the bill that was talking about the fact that the NITA being made a regulator will be made to license ICT professionals, certify ICT businesses and the likes. And then also, I mean, also in the interest of raising money for the agency to be able, the regulator now, which will be, because it's going to be an authority.
That's right.
They talked about NITA going to charge 1% top line gross revenue for ICT businesses and co. And I mean, that is what took a lot of the young people by storm. I mean, because, you know, this industry is an industry where there's so many people in the space and it's driven a lot by experimentation. I always say that when it comes to tech, a lot of our people they do a lot of settings, because you see the young people, they are in tie, they are in suits, but a lot of them are in experimentation stages. A lot of them are trying to start up something. They are trying to raise funding. Digital entrepreneurship is it's a wild goose chase for a lot of young people. So people began to talk about it. They were very unhappy with the process because nobody is against regulation. I think the focus for us is effective regulation, not expansive regulation. So the bill had very positive things. I mean, example, it talks about sandbox opportunity where young people will be able to now come work even with NITA, be able to create an environment where they can test out some of their skills, some of the things that they are producing in the space and things like that. But I mean, even the law itself does not show how investment will come in to drive innovation in the space. It doesn't deal with some of those issues. So there are a few areas that some of the young people have concerns over. So they began to raise agitations here and there. Thankfully, the ministry saw wisdom in the comments that started coming. So they called for a forum. I was there, thankfully. I was invited. I got in there. This was on Tuesday. And the minister said to us that the document that we have actually is not even the document that they are working on. So he's seen a document 4.0, document 5.0. So, I mean, at the table, everybody was like, can we see the document? Then the minister said, he can't breach his oath of secrecy. So he has, because he's taken it to cabinet. But, I mean, in some of the comments that we shared, I mean, example, I said to the minister personally, and this is just because I know him personally, I said to him that I feel like a lot of the agitations could have been cured just by a little information being put out there, because I feel, first of all, the ministry was very transparent in putting out the document for all of us to see that we're working on something. Here it is. Now, when the inputs are taken, I believe that they are taken for incorporation. So when it's incorporated, you handhold the process with the public by saying to us that, okay, there's a document 1.0, it's a document 2.0. By the time we get to 2.0, before we move to 3.0, a lot of the concerns that we have, because in that meeting, thankfully with the minister, with the meeting on Tuesday, the minister said to us, and I mean DG is by me here, he said to us that all these concerns you have raised, specifically the licensing, the certification, it's not the way you're reading it in the old document, because you're looking at the old documents. And that we're talking about licensing, doing certification of folks that are going to do business with government. So it means that if I am doing my experimentation, hiding in my small garage, I'm a software developer, I'm a website developer, I'm an app developer, hiding there somewhere, working with a private company, I have nothing doing with NITA. So, I mean, he cured that. Then he also talked about the fact that 1% charge for businesses working in the ICT space, which is going to form part of what is going to raise revenue for NITA, has also been scrapped. So we're left, it was more like an anti-climax for us. I even told the minister that this is an anti-climax, because, I mean, for us, if you tell us that this document is now document 2.0, document 3.0, we'll be happy, because I'm sure we'd have cured all of those agitations. Then by the time he gets to 4.0, 5.0, it's just him and his document, and then his bosses and his God. Then, but I mean, he said, now he can't show the document to us. Our only opportunity is that Parliament will receive the document after Cabinet approves it. I'm sure after the first reading, we'll get to see we'll get to see it through the Select Committee on Communications.
Yes, once Parliament receives it, there will be opportunity for stakeholders to go into that house.
So we've entreated everybody that that's the only window that we have. Thankfully, the ministers also shared to us that that's the only window that we have at this time. So, I mean, in summary, this is where we are right now.
All right. Okay.
Looking to engage from there.
All right. So once again, Minister, thank you for, indulging us, because I'm stressing because we did agree to a certain plan that you would deal with us briefly and leave because of the circumstances you find yourself. But this is where we are. What have you flagged as the major concerns, which now, having listened to Derek, who says sounds like an anticlimax, I'm asking myself if this was necessary in the first place.
Thank you so much, Samson. And Samson, let me put a certain context to this conversation. I've seen a lot of social media commentary, and we've been made out to literally be villains who are looking to anti-business and kill businesses with regulation and all of that. And I just asked myself one question. Samson, as a senior lawyer yourself, you know what the process is for passing legislation. And I made this point in the Tuesday Industry Forum meeting that I'll be glad if anybody can show me any time in the history of this Fourth Republic that a ministry or a minister has put out a draft bill for public scrutiny in the manner in which we've done. I was in Parliament when ESLA tried to pass the Cybersecurity Act. The only time the industry, the tech industry today, including Derek, and Derek is my good friend, he's gone on X and said, oh, the minister should publish version 1 to version 4. He should tell me when he saw version half of the Cybersecurity Act.
Well, you chose to bring version 1.
Or when my big brother of blessed memory, Omani Boama, in 2015, tried to pass the Interception of Postal Packets Bill. If anybody even saw it until it made its way to Parliament. We put it out. And Derek has admitted that, yes, he saw it when we put it out in September. Samson, this is what happened. When we put it out, people made their inputs. And what we then did was we created mailing lists. We put out 15 legislation. So you have an interest in a particular legislation and you send in a memo. We respond to you after your memo has been taken on board. And let's be clear, Samson, the ministry is not sitting down with the agencies and just writing the bills. So we have 4 law firms that are carrying out the execution of these bills for us. Bernard Ahiafo and Associates, 8 Gigs at Law, Aziz Bamba and Associates, Dr. Aziz Bamba, and Raymond Atuguba's law firm. These are the 4 law firms that are consulting on this for us. So when you make your input, we receive it, the technical agency looks at it, makes their comment, and then all of that is sent to the lawyers. And then the lawyers look at the Constitution and all the frameworks and then decide to come back to us with a draft. When that is done, we then send the resultant document back, which will now become version 2.0, send that back to the mailing list of those who raised the issues. So if you didn't raise an issue after we put out the first document, and we've engaged with those who raised issues, how then do you sit and accuse us of not being transparent? Derek was in the room on Tuesday when another tech CEO, I think he's called Nehemiah Tiga or so, admitted that
okay, his internet just froze. This is his business.
To review the upgraded and updated version, and then they come back to us. And Samson, I don't know if I'm permitted to do this, but on one of the other bills, which people call them Information Bill, as it's going to Parliament, the name of the bill now is Information Integrity and Digital Communications Bill. Samson, you represent a group that has an interest. And please stop me if I shouldn't proceed. But I think
that's fine. That's fine. I've consulted for a number of groups.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The National Media Commission has an interest and had written a memo. We had responded to them with an updated version. Samson, you had cause to request an in-person meeting at the ministry on behalf of your client, the National Media Commission. My technical team, the lawyers, and the National Media Commission had a meeting. When I was told that meeting was ongoing, I walked into that meeting and sat in and engaged with you. Is this a ministry that is not open? Is this a ministry that is seeking to do something clandestinely? And several other groups have walked into the ministry and we've engaged with them. Those who have mailed, we have responded to their mails with the updated versions. So Samson, if after we have done 4 rounds of consultations, somebody now goes to see the draft that was published in September and is now waking up and coming to the party and saying that because they have slept on whatever rights may have accrued because of the transparency that we should halt the entire process and now come back to what they should have done in September, and others have taken opportunity, then Samson, the law will need opportunity. But Samson, let us be clear. The issues of whether people are going to be licensed or not, we've settled that matter. Derek has spoken to that. We've been very, very clear. If you offer a service to the government, you would need to be licensed and certified by NITA, because that is the standard process. Derek made an issue about, and I'll just touch that as the last one, that the bill doesn't show where investments will come in. Respectfully, it's a legislation. A legislation will not touch on where in sources of investment and things. That's not how laws are made. After the legislation is passed, we will then come to Parliament with an LI. The LI will flesh it out. And Samson, I think that a lot of our friends need to understand the lawmaking process. That the bill is the what. The LI that will follow the passage of the bill is the how. So the bill tells us what we want to do. How we do it will come in a legislative instrument that fleshes out. But you can't expect us to begin to deal with how funding and things will come in a bill, a parent substantive bill. That's not how laws are made. So yes, I hear the tech industry, but we will not rewrite the rules because that is what they want. There's a way laws are made in this country.
The concerns include fees that will strangulate startups, innovation. What do you say to that?
Again, that's misplaced. That's not correct. The fees that have been published on the NITA website, and your production can go on the NITA website and publish and put it on the screen. Those fees are fees that were passed by Parliament under the Fees and Charges Act in 2023 and revised in 2025. So those fees cannot be on the basis of a prospective legislation. They are on the basis of existing legislation, because Parliament will not pass fees and charges for under a law that is yet to come to Parliament. So these are regulatory functions and rights and authorities that NITA already has in its 2008 Act. Now, Samson, when someone says there are fees for startups, if a startup is offering cybersecurity services and critical database solutions to the government of Ghana, is that really a startup? That's the first question we should ask. Secondly, what is the average cost of critical database services to the government of Ghana? This range in the millions of dollars. And so if NITA is asking you to pay the equivalent of $2,500 for a service that and that's the one-time registration, subsequent registrations, annual renewals are about $1,500. Meanwhile, the service you are providing to government, you are charging $5, $6, $10 million. How then do you tell me that those prices are inhibited? But the question again is, who is a startup? You see, Samson, we must be careful because people just throw around nomenclature. Oh, startups are going to be strangulated. Who is a startup in this country? There is no legal framework that defines who a startup is. And that's why one of the legislation we are working on is the Innovation and Startup Bill, to define who a startup is. Because Samson, we have tech firms in Ghana that have operated for 18 years who still claim that they are startups. 18 years. So the question is, who is a startup? What are the benefits of a startup? When you go to Nigeria, when you go to Tunisia, when you go to South Africa, Rwanda, Kenya, there are clear legal definitions of who a startup is, what the benefits that startup gets are. And that's why we are passing an innovation and startup bill. So it is not correct that everybody just wakes up and says, one, they are a startup. And two, if you are a startup, what are the legal benefits you get? That will not be seen in the NITA Act. That will be seen in the Innovation and Startup Bill, which defines who a startup is. Because remember, startups are not only tech. All startups are not just tech businesses. And so when you have an Innovation and Startup Bill that deals with all the benefits for startups, you don't then come and try to say that you must see that again in the NITA Bill. I don't know if I've addressed that issue.
All right. So he has to take leave of us now. If you have a question for him, then he goes. Okay. The rest of us in the studio can deal with the rest of it. Yes,
yes. So primarily, we are here discussing a document that we are not too sure its state. Because what has been available in the public domain has been changing. He's talked about version 1 to version 5. And so even with the document I have, I don't know the version to say to all the issues that we want to raise.
You may nonetheless raise it, so
yes, of course, I will.
If he has to update
I will, but a quick one. The legal firms that he's engaged are here for Bamba, Atuguba, and Geeks. I would like to know whether they were sourced through sole sourcing or competitive bidding.
Okay, so that's a new question.
That's a new question. That's because he mentioned them. I'll be interested to know how they procured the services of these four. But importantly, the issues of interest for the industry, and this is very important, has to do with the licensing, which he said they've dealt with. I don't know in which form. The second issue has to do with how those entities are going to, because per the bill that I have, it says that when you need to merge or you need to even dispose of or sell your company, you need an approval from the state, and that for me is worrying. And so that also has to be looked at. He's talked about the 1%, and then I also tabled this up for his concern. The Section 31, that's where they talked about the government creating a state-owned ICT to reduce dependence on external contractors. I want to know how he's also doing that.
Okay.
And the last one, there's Section 48, which talks about inspectors entering, seizing, and shutting down one's business without a court order. I don't know the state of that particular.
Right. Please respond to those you can quickly. Oliver will take care of the rest as we have the discussion in studio.
No, something. I mean, and with my acting DG in there, I thought that he could have handled all of this. But let's be very clear. The law firms are being contracted through the World Bank. And let me be clear. When I took over the ministry, I realized that there was an agreement or there was some process underway by my predecessor to have an innovation and startup bill done, funded by the World Bank at a cost of $978,000. I went to the World Bank and said that I thought that was highly inflated and did not represent value for money, because even though the World Bank was funding it, it was a loan to the taxpayer. I then said to the World Bank, for $3 million, we'll be able to do 15 legislation. So effectively, what my predecessor was going to contract a loan of $978,000. We are doing at $200,000, not just the legislation, but legislation and LIs for all of them. So that's really, and so it's gone through the World Bank's process to do the acquisition of the law firms. When it comes to the issue of licensing, we address this by saying that the licensing applies to any ICT service provider or professional offering a service to the government and its ecosystem or to a critical information infrastructure. So if you are not offering a service to the government or to a CII, there's no need, nobody's asking you to license. Nobody's asking you to be registered with NITA. Mergers and acquisitions, again, relative to persons who offer service to the CIIs or the ecosystem. Because Samson, If you are offering a service to the government of Ghana, take for example, you are offering cybersecurity services to the government of Ghana, and the government of Ghana knows who you are, they vetted you as a service provider, then you are now being acquired by another entity from a different jurisdiction. The government of Ghana has a right to know who it is that is coming in to acquire that service provider to the government ecosystem. And I use this example of even radio licenses. Radio licenses, there's a radio frequency license authorization that has been given to Joy. If the owners of Joy today decide that they want to sell 99.7 FM to another, they cannot wake up and do it on their own and say that because they have the license. The law says they must come back to NCA and inform NCA of their intention to hive off or give out that license for the NCA to approve it.
Yes.
And that's even a radio license. Then imagine the license for someone who is offering a critical service to the government ecosystem. I think that is a no-brainer, that if a new player is coming in, the regulator who serves government interests must know who it is and be able to say yes or no to that. If you want to go ahead with the acquisition and the government of Ghana says we're not comfortable with this service provider, then you are at liberty to say I won't offer service. And this is standard practice. Don't forget the U.S. Department, the U.S. Congress actually banned all American government entities from contracting with Huawei. Nobody saw that as wrong. But that is a security decision the U.S. Congress took to protect American critical infrastructure. And so if we say that any entity coming to acquire a service provider to the government ecosystem must be known to us, it is only standard industry practice. The 1% on gross earnings, again, that has been subsumed by the licensing that is going to happen. So there's not going to be any 1%. We made that clear at the meeting we had. Section 31 on a state-owned entity. Yes, today we've had an 18-year abnormality that we are trying to fix. NITA is supposed to be a regulator. That is what Act 771 spelled out NITA to do. However, the government has infrastructure, LTE base stations, fiber, metro fiber, all over the place. And NITA has been acting as the manager of that. And what we are saying is, hive that off. The ministry is going to incorporate a limited liability company to hold that asset and be the government ICT infrastructure backbone company. That company will then be regulated by NITA. Because what you have now is what NITA is doing is akin to NCA running Ghana Telecom. When we had Ghana Telecom, NCA regulated Ghana Telecom but did not run Ghana Telecom because the regulator should not be a player in the field itself. But for 18 years, we've allowed this abnormality to go, and we are just curing it and saying that that company that holds government today, the national data center, the fiber infrastructure that we have, LTE base stations that we have, microwave links, all those things that are government assets that government has invested. NITA as a regulator should not be the one operating it. NITA should be regulating the operator. And so that's where the distinction is. And then on Section 41, inspectors. Section 48 about inspectors. On that one, too, we've been very clear. The Constitution is clear. And you cannot act in a manner that is unconstitutional. You can't go into a premise only after they have gotten a warrant. And Isaac, let me just be clear. Yao, I call you Yao. Let me not call you Isaac. Isaac is your government name. Yao, the point is very simple. You have not engaged the process since we published it. So if today you have now gone to our website to go and pull what we published in September, those who are in the industry, who have been engaging us, have the updated version. And so the updated version is what I've given to you. And like I said, we'll come before Parliament and you would see what we have.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the time you've made with us. Samuel Nete George is the Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation. And he spoke to us on the two critical issues that have come up. All right,
first and foremost, he talked about their websites having the old version. Once they were updating, why were they not publishing the updates on the website as well? Because you don't expect me, if I want information, to go to any other source apart from what you've published. And what you've published is what I work with.
Is that the same sentiment?
I mean, that's the same sentiment. See, Samson, I listened to Sam very carefully. The feedback I'm getting this morning suggests that you are you are justified to receive an update if you have made an input. But we didn't make an input before it was published. So, I mean, you see, the thing for me is that openness, if you decide to be transparent, let's be transparent throughout the process. Because, I mean, it's a good thing. We appreciate the fact that, I mean, I've been in the system. He was right. Most of the times when we are dealing with bills, we all go and start from Parliament.
That's right.
So, I mean, I feel like this is a ministry that is leveraging technology because it basically is in charge of technology. So to put it out there means that you're ready to work with us. Let's do this thing together. So the ideation process...
Do you appreciate a difficulty he raises, that you acknowledge that the normal process will be that Parliament will be the one to advertise the bill.
Exactly.
And then call those of us who are interested to come over there and to be part of the consultative process. Or sometimes they do take it around. But that is when it is gone through cabinet and then come out.
See, but
his question is, or his concern, I'm asking if you appreciate it, that they receive inputs, then they incorporate some of them if they have to, then they upload it. Then people come, raise issues again, they incorporate, upload it up. He's suggesting that they will not end the process. So why don't you allow them? It's a question I'm asking. Why don't you allow them to end the back end of the process, and then there will be the opportunity where all people will come in?
You see, I think, you know, for the whole lawmaking process, like he described, I think it's useful for us to appreciate the fact that the process of taking inputs and incorporating inputs and whatever it is even helps the ministry, even with its own timelines, towards getting the law passed. Because you don't want to get, by the time it gets to Parliament, if this has been done, there'll be very little agitation. It will all go through a smooth process. You even see very little memoranda going to the Select Committee on Communications for people to go and complain. Secondly, the point I'm making is that I think that input should not be available to only those who made, the update of the document should not be made available to only those who made inputs. Because I was saying in the tweet he talked about that by the time we did 1.0, 2.0, if it was even uploaded, a lot of the agitations would have died down because the things were basically young. The people talking are not your regular people you see, but they are all in the space doing the experimentation. Because like I said, tech is experimentation. A lot of it is people testing things out till they get their eureka moment, and the next moment they are building unicorns. So these people are sitting there, they are hearing noises, and the noise says that your survival is being tied to a license. That's not something that any tech person finds comfortable. So they're going to fight
they're
back.
They're working on a dozen bills.
I agree.
And I have the opportunity to have also done some of these things. There's one for the NCA itself.
Yes.
There is one for the misinformation, disinformation, which he's spoken about the new name. The new name.
Yeah.
Some of it we had been to brainstorm sessions and push for, you know, some of the names that we felt were the best and so on. Yeah. With the NMC, for example, which he mentions that I've been associated with for this kind of work, it's a group. So we have gone to brainstorm with lawyers. The NMC itself has lawyers on the board. You see how it works. Yeah. And we have come back and insisted on some things that they ought to be because they are best practices elsewhere. Is it fair that they keep a sort of a restricted process in the amendments until it gets to Parliament and all will be participating again once again?
That is fair, you know, and as he's saying, this is an innovation by the ministry, okay, which is commendable.
Very welcome.
People have welcomed it. And importantly, we also sit here as MPs because we have people in our constituencies and in this country who were worried with the initial proposal. I call it a proposal, not even a draft bill, because Parliament have to be seized with it after a cabinet before we call it a draft bill. So those proposals or intentions of the ministry in trying to bring this up were matters that were of major concerns. And sitting here to indicate that they have responded to key stakeholders who had raised those concerns when the initial bill came, amongst others. Through other media, you could also provide updates so that once, if coming here in searching for information, I have updates, for example, that the 1% on gross profit would be is out, tied to one thing or the other, scrapped, and tied to licensing. It wouldn't be an issue for me to even raise. But whatever it is, they've done a lot of work. They've taken on board a lot of commentaries and concerns. It is now before Cabinet. Of course, he cannot share that final document in Cabinet with us. And sitting in Parliament, and they also being stakeholders. Of course, when it comes to Parliament, we will then be seized with the final document based upon which all other matters that are still outstanding or we think we need to fine-tune, we'll bring it.
Will you suggest that their approach,
yes,
in the way they floated them long before it even gets to Cabinet, before it gets to Parliament to advertise for consultation processes, would you say that that approach should be adopted by all other ministries or institutions that are sponsoring bills?
Very commendable, as I said earlier, and it depends on the legislation, okay, but as much as possible, it should be part and parcel of our culture now, if we want to adopt it, that ministries introducing bills, particularly when you come to this government where we are passing bills within 24 hours, in less than 24 hours. We've passed almost all the bills in Parliament comes under certificate of urgency. And so you don't have the opportunity for even Parliament, because one, you can't trust even the stakeholder engagement process, and then it comes to Parliament, it is referred to a committee. Within 24 hours, the committee comes to Parliament and the law is passed. The bill is passed into law. And so I think it is very good. We can encourage other ministries to do that. And
but are you getting a sense that some of the key problems that were raised appear to have received necessary attention?
You want to?
I'll be frank. I'll say that even in the meeting on Tuesday, I mean, we left the meeting feeling that about 90% of the heat has been tackled. So that's why I said it felt like an anti-climax. And that's why I was saying that in the process of being transparent, if they even floated the document 1.0 or 2.0, because the strategy of the ministry was, let's put the bills out, people will see them, and people will make inputs. By the time you harmonize the initial inputs, Samson, trust me, if you share that first document or that draft, it would, I'm sure people, those who even commented before the other groups, I did a bit of consultation as well for 3 different groups. I can't mention their names, but I mean, in these consultations, all of these things was raised. Yeah. And so, I mean, you're getting the same kind of feedback. So even if I come to the party late, maybe I was having surgery, you never know. And I'm now well, and I'm now seeing the bill. I want to see a bill that looks like people have touched on this already, so I don't even have an issue with the ministry. Because you see, I mean, for those of us who are not, like Sam said, Honorable Minister said, people need to appreciate the lawmaking process. I'm not a lawmaker, so I do take. You are a lawmaker, but there's a general sense of suspicion every time a law pops up. That's how public policy is. Right. So if you decide to put the bills out for us to make an input, I think the greater advantage you even have as a ministry is that you are bringing everybody in the ecosystem together before you go to Parliament. So in Parliament, it's a home run.
So Doc, now I raise this question. Yeah. So, for example, the CDD has created, such an umbrella where almost all the laws, the bills that are being considered by the ministry, sponsored by the ministry, we have taken our time to look at a number of them. There are just too many. So, and this calls for a lot of painstaking work. Even just yesterday, there was a meeting once again under the umbrella of CDD to look at some of these bills. When the broadcasting bill was brought back under the last regime for consideration, on 2 different occasions, I had opportunity to do some work on it, together with groups in some, brainstorming sessions. We do the first one, then we go into a next meeting after, say, 2-3 months, and we find that we are told that there's a new one, which is different from what we had worked on earlier. This is what is showing up here. What's the big deal in keeping the people updated from day one till you get to the final document you take to, not the final, the document you take to cabinet. What's the problem with that?
Okay, so we all agree that it's a novel process. We took an exploratory approach where we said, okay, even right from the beginning, let us go out there.
Which has been applauded.
Yes. So we should understand the novelty of the process. And we also understand that there are people with very powerful interests. So there are people who will really want to see what their suggestions are in there. And it is not every suggestion that you take on board, else you have a whole book of wishes
you never end
from everybody. And again, how many iterations should we end at? That is the question you also ask yourself. So you must also understand that because in our ecosystem, we also have fragmented regulators. It is not just about our space. It is also about other co-regulators that we work with. For example, there were regulatory lapses, overlaps with DPC, that is the Data Protection Commission, regulatory overlap with NCA and others that we needed to also resolve to clear regulatory boundaries. So the work is not also just about the people out there. It is also about we, the co-regulators, especially when you know that regulation, ICT regulation, though it's vertical, ICT services are horizontal. It's cut across. There's e-agric, where Ministry of Agric is doing something in agric, e-health, so you have a lot of other domains that you are dealing with. So you need a lot of time to synthesize all that has come in and then come up with what I call a negotiated proposal or a negotiated proposal, as Honorable Boama wants us to call it now. So now that we have, and that is what will be going to Parliament. Then we'll go to Cabinet. Cabinet will look at it. It will go to AG, the drafters will see whether it is in the right legislative language. And then it goes to Parliament, where now Parliament now officially hands it out to the public for public inputs. So I think that this process, because of its novel nature, also confused a lot of people. There were people who were even suggesting that the law had already been passed by Parliament. There are people who even thought that it was already in Parliament because of the novel nature of the process. And that is a clarity that we have sought to bring about for some time now. In fact, others were also confusing our existing mandate and regulatory actions that we are taking with what we are proposing. We must understand that Act 771 created NITA as an ICT regulator. But for all this while, that regulatory mandate had been sleeping. And NITA was doing operations and serving government, with ICT services and all that. But that also posed certain risks within the ecosystem that we needed to quickly take some regulatory actions to cure. And that is the reason why people are seeing fees and charges and all that. And they think it's applying to the proposal that we are looking at. We have a lot of providers who provide ICT services to government. And NITA is supposed to supervise, it's like the consultant for government, to supervise this ICT project throughout its life cycle, from inception. So if it's an information system that a ministry is acquiring, NITA is supposed to supervise the whole life cycle from inception through testing, through implementation.
There's one thing that the minister spoke about that you just also referenced, that your existing law
yes,
already allows you to conduct certain operations.
Yes.
One of the questions is, in the existing law, do you have a mandate to license professionals?
No.
It depends on your understanding of what ICT is. I'm an information system professional. And when we say information system is IT plus people plus processes.
In the current bill,
yes,
you are providing for licensing professionals, correct?
In the current, what we have now,
yes,
or the proposal.
What is being proposed?
Yeah. No.
No, it is. Licensing professionals, various certifications.
Those who provide services to government.
Okay.
In fact, our intention is that the whole IT cadre in the public service should be regulated by NITA. Just as, for example, accountants.
So why I raise the first issue is that if your current, law does not give you the power to license professionals, how can you be making provision for fees and charges for those, activities?
For those who are in the public service. So if you look at our website, we are very clear that we are registering and accrediting professionals who are providing services to government. We are very clear on that. We are not talking about people who are doing their own private work elsewhere. The other side is that there are ICT professional groups who have requested for a legislation to cater for ICT professionals in the whole ecosystem. That is a different topic on its own. That is not part of what we are looking at. They are looking at it in the form of like the Chartered Institute of Marketers, Chartered Institute of Accountants, and so on and so forth. That is also a different conversation. But for what we have, we are looking at the IT cadre in the public service. Government invests so much in information systems. We are taking loans from World Bank and all that. And when we deploy these systems and all, because of the capacity and the competencies of the people who are supposed to manage, supervise, and use these systems, sometimes the systems fail. And we are talking about millions of dollars and all that. So we are concerned about the capacity and the competencies of the IT cadre in the public service. And that is the reason why the certification regime and the licensing regime is very, very important.
Samson, I just want on this licensing, you check from the proposal that I have, the Section 37, which is restricting the licensing exclusively to Ghanaians or companies wholly owned by Ghanaians.
No, that is off.
It's gone.
I can tell you that is
gone. All right.
I can tell you that is.
That's why there is talk about the
it is part of the. It is part of the input. Some of the big text
because these are
even on the issue of the fines.
Perhaps you should not have advertised your zero drafts.
Or they should just take it up then if they felt that they didn't want to continue after they had moved to.
You're talking about the fees.
I was just going to say the fees that we're talking. Sorry, the fees. Let's just.
Yeah.
I mean, when we met on Tuesday, DG, you mentioned the fact that there was a mix-up. So if you notice, the initial what was published on your website that had ICT professionals 5,000, 6,000 CDs. You can see all of that has now been. But I'm saying that when the initial,
it was never. That was pure mischief. Let me be frank with you. That was pure mischief. There's an error. You can't charge fees, public fees, and charge without parliament. So the LI is very clear. Approve fees and charges, miscellaneous provisions, amendment regulations 2025. Very clear. And it is public document. There's nowhere that we are charging any professional 6,000, 20,000, 8,000.
I was just trying to make the point that it's part of what formed the agitation. So, I mean, people were sharing these things on your website, and they were saying that this is what they are coming to charge us. Right. So sometimes I'm just trying to push the between DG and my good friend, Honorable Minister. They are not fallible. You are not perfect. I mean, we are human beings. We are all learning. So it's important that when we are going through the process of drafting laws, working with people, doing public policy, let's also shake ourselves to be able to take feedback and criticism. Because if you come across as if you've had a flawless process and you've done everything right. I mean, most of the inputs that has come to you, I can tell you for a fact, most of the people I consult for have not received any updated versions. I can check same for the telecoms industry because I worked there for 10 years. As of last week, I know they didn't have any updated version.
Right, and we need to move on to our next subject matter. But Derek, there's something about us as a country that we have to acknowledge.
Yeah.
People hear something, they may not even check to be sure, and they'll start blowing it out there, particularly in the advent of social media.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one sad example, and it's about journalists. When the misinformation, disinformation, other hate speech bill discussion started, even the GJ, all other journalists and groups were completely against it. Totally against it. Then I had the opportunity to ask somebody who had actually spoken publicly against it. I asked him, have you read? I found out the person hadn't read. I did that test with as many as 6 other colleagues, reputable journalists. They had not. Then I paused and asked them a question. You know, for decades now, we have been asking for the repeal of the obnoxious section, the abuse section 208 and section 76 of the Electronic Communications Act, which they are using now, overusing it to abuse people and their right to speech. I said, do you know, for example, that these 2 are gone? So can we look at how we can contribute, as it were, positively, than just say, throw the baby with the bathwater? Then people paused. Are you sure it's there? I said, check. It was there. We have that problem. So people will continue all these problems. So don't you really think that attempting to restrict until it gets to Parliament may be a good thing?
No, I think that we have evolved so much that this should be the way to go, right from.
All right.
Samson, I think that it should be a process of hand-holding, which simply means I put out a document 0, a draft, which Honorable just got this morning as well.
Yeah.
You've taken inputs. That first process or second process just puts out that updated draft, and then you leave it, because I feel like by that time 60%, 70% of the issues would have been tackled in the updated draft, so that it reduces the agitation as much as possible.
And just to also indicate, yes, we've said it's a good thing, but let's not also pretend or state as if this is the first time bills that are proposals that are coming before Parliament have been advertised before it reaches Parliament. The Lands Bill, when it was being discussed, it was discussed extensively in the public domain before. Even the Companies Act, the bill, before it goes to Parliament. The
Lands Bill, for example, it was, and groups were set up. I remember being on the GBA's, Ghana Bar Associations group, that had to also make an input to it, even before it got to Cabinet.
So it's important we place on record, not as if this is the first time such issue has...
Okay, thank you very much. So we take a quick break, and when we return, we are talking about how Ghana is evacuating its citizens from South Africa amid renewed xenophobic violence and anti-migrant protest. Nearly 800 Ghanaians have registered, as the Minister for Foreign Affairs have told us, and about 300 have already been flown home. Now, we are now asking questions whether this was an overreaction, because those who have meted this violence on our citizens are claiming that we are overreacting. But there are also concerns that maybe we should imitate what is happening in Nigeria's, I don't know which of the houses in Nigeria, where they are saying that they should do something, and I don't want to say it on TV. Many are saying so on social media. In Mozambique, they have also reportedly done something. South African trucks are supposed to use their place to access routes to somewhere they had to go, and they have blocked them. among other things. I understand some students in Ghana also want to take a protest, just like the students in South Africa are also joining the protest now. It's a looting brigade in South Africa of the migrant shops. We'll be right back on that.
You are going to receive psychosocial support. We have psychologists, we have medical doctors, we have nurses here to take care of you. That is not all. President Mahama says that all of you should be given 2 special allowances. One for your transportation.
The DSTV, which is also a South Africa company that is cutting away millions of dollars, even abusing, resorting to practices that will not even be accepted in South Africa. I don't want this Senate to be shedding tears, to sympathize with those who have died. We didn't come here to shed tears, and I'm not going to shed tears. If you hit me, I hit you. I think it is appropriate in diplomacy. It's an economic struggle. What the black South Africans are saying is that Nigerians are taking their jobs. Okay, Nigerians, come home. I take over the job of MTN. Nigerians, come home. I take over the job of DSTV. When we hit back, the president of South Africa will not only talk, he will go on his knees to recognize that Nigerians cannot be intimidated, and we do not condone any one life being lost. If a crime has been committed under South African law, they have a right to bring any sort of person to justice. But to kill our people as if we are helpless, we are not. By the time we turn in the economy hardship, we withdraw MTN license, we revoke DSTV license. Those people coming from Nigeria, from South Africa will have good jobs to do. Let South Africa continue with their jobs. Then when we have this balance of madness, I believe there will be sanity, and we will kick our bilateral relationship in a manner that is a win-win. Right now, Nigeria trade deficit with South Africa. South Africa is the one benefiting. So my colleagues, let's not turn this place a place of mourning and crying and lamenting. Let us bite in a manner that they will be the one begging. I so hold and I persuade my colleagues that when we come to prayers, we should include these 2 prayers: that MTN license be withdrawn, that DSTV license be withdrawn. There are Nigerians who can provide those services, and they will employ those who are coming back home from South Africa. You bite me once, I bite you twice.
Issues that are being raised about high levels of crime, that's correct, that's genuine. What is not genuine, what is not correct, is to say the reason we have high levels of unemployment in South Africa is because of foreign nationals. It's not. It's because we as South Africans, as this leadership, as government, as businesses, we have not solved these economic challenges of South Africa. They have nothing to do with somebody who's coming from outside. Why are we blaming other people for our own faults? We've got to solve the problem of unemployment in South Africa by looking at how the South African economy is functioning, what's gone wrong in the past, what is it that we need to do. If we think we're going to solve the problem of unemployment, by chasing away some undocumented person, in 10 years' time, problem will not be solved.
Right, so you had Thabo Mbeki, former president, and you had in Nigeria's Senate also people who are really getting very angry. Samuel Abdullahi Jinapor is a member of parliament for Damango. He also joins us. He's a ranking member on foreign affairs. And we have one of those who just returned who will share a few of what they have gone through with us, but a bit of that with us. Sami, thanks for making time to join us. All right. Try again. Let me see if I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning, Samson. Good morning.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Right. So we must be feeling very, happy, and there's some pride in being Ghanaian. The manner in which our government is evacuating and, rescuing Ghanaians who are caught up in this trouble, right?
Well, thank you once again, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. The effort government is making is one that is welcomed and commendable. We from the minority side had said from the very beginning that government ought to deploy all the logistics and resources at its disposal to come to the aid of our compatriots in South Africa. Indeed, I made a point that this is when being a citizen of Ghana should matter. Of course, there have been some initial delays and hitches in the execution of this operation, and some of us were very concerned that it was taking that long, and at the beginning, we seemed to have been struggling with the evacuation effort. And we're particularly concerned because you will see from the history of our government that Ghanaian governments have been extraordinary when it comes to coming to the aid of our compatriots in times of need and in areas of conflict. You recall the conflicts in Sierra Leone and Liberia. The Generalist government rose up to the occasion and came to the aid of Ghanaians. Not too long ago, we repatriated hundreds and thousands of people from Ukraine during the Akufo-Addo administration. And same was done during COVID across the world, where I think almost about 9,000 Ghanaians also were evacuated into Ghana. And so we're very concerned that at the beginning, government seemed to have been struggling with the whole effort. But as I say, better late than never. And if government is now come to grips.
If we are doing this a little late, as you may say, we're already being accused by figures in South Africa, including those who have been leading this march, that we are overreacting. You have heard Julius Malema. You have heard what's her name again, Jacinta Zuma.
I think we should disregard, with the greatest of respect, I think we should disregard the utterances of the likes of Julius Malema completely. Ghanaian national interest will supersede any other interest. And I think what the government of Ghana is currently doing is very much in accord with the national interest of Africa.
He said all we needed was to give them a little time and they will sort things out and they don't hate Africans, and that what Jacinta and his team, the March for March people are doing is criminal, is wrong. As you know, Jacinta is facing court in South Africa over these things, right? He said just give us a little time, we'd have sorted things out.
That is all well and good. That is all well said. But that should not motivate Ghanaian public policy, government policy. Government policy should be very much in alignment with our national interest. And I think our national interest is to get our compatriots who want to return to Ghana home. And I think that's exactly what government is trying to do. And I'm not too sure that Mr. Malema's dictation should be anything that we should adhere to. The Ghanaians in South Africa who have been caught up in this total mess.
All of this boils down to jobs, and we don't have them already here. There are hundreds of thousands who are here who don't have jobs, and we are bringing them down and giving them something. I don't know how much it is and what it can do for them, and we are going to bring 800 lots to come and add to that situation.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, Samson, let me deal with that. But I should also point out that, in conclusion with my initial remarks, that government should continue to focus on the job and pay less attention to the PR. I think there's an overdose of PR, and that doesn't help. They should just focus on delivering and getting the people down. But the question of jobs, that is correct. It continues to be a major issue, not only in South Africa, in the whole of Africa, in Ghana, in the world. But that is absolutely no justification for the unfortunate and tragic, and if I may add, barbaric conduct which is taking place in South Africa. And I want to say to you right here that what is happening in South Africa is not just about jobs. It's beyond that. It's a national psyche and subconscious, which is egoistic, which is nationalistic, and which people they fed them into that, and they fed them a lot of national sentiment and political actors in South Africa in the run-up to national elections and other local elections. Use this whole issue of this is our country, foreigners have come to invade it, very much along the lines of the rhetoric which was used during the fight against apartheid. But this time around, instead of directing it at the white minority in South Africa, it's been directed at black African nationals in South Africa. That is, for me, the real cause, the real problem that has to be dealt with. It is really a subconscious which is being bred and fed into the masses in South Africa, particularly the youth of South Africa. There's unemployment everywhere in the world, and I think probably in Africa, the unemployment rate may be higher in most places than it is in South
Nigeria.
Africa. We don't see this kind of
Nigeria, as we understand, is also going to begin a similar evacuation process. They may have many numbers there. I'm familiar with a number of places in South Africa where you can see quite a great number of Nigerians who are doing very well in their businesses and everything else. But in the Senate, you must have heard the comments that, well, if you say they don't deserve the jobs there, you, via DSTV, MTN, and so on, you have taken millions of jobs. Let's drive you away. Let's give those, commanding heights to Nigerians and let them employ the people you are driving out of your country. Many in Ghana have also suggested similar moves. I doubt that we will want to do anything like that.
Because I think whilst we continue to condemn the situation in South Africa and also call on the South African authorities to rise up to the occasion and crack down on this very unfortunate conduct by certain citizens of South Africa, and perhaps even escalate it to the level of African Union in terms of instigating sanctions against South Africa as a country and putting measures to deal with the situation. I can very well understand the emotional, the kind of emotion that this invokes. I mean, there's absolutely no two ways about that. But I think this is the time we should call for restraint, and this is the time which requires measured and calculated strategy and approach to dealing with this matter. There is the whole subject of protectionism in trade, in world trading and in trade in Africa and all of that. And if, for example, countries or ECOWAS or African Union came to the conclusion that the South African government or actors in South Africa were engaged in protectionism and engaged in excluding other nationals from participating in the economy or the national economy of South Africa, and there is a need for some level of reciprocity in terms of taking measures, trade measures in various countries to protect the interests of those countries. I think that can be discussed, and that should be discussed within the context of international law, within the context of international trade, and it should be done in a sophisticated and mature manner, if I may put it that way.
All right.
But it's not every South African who supports what is happening in South Africa. So to say that all South Africans everywhere in Africa should... It doesn't have
to be all South Africans, that the case that, yes, that's fact, that it's not all South Africans who support what is happening there, but people's concern is about what the government has failed to do, which is suggesting a tacit complicity. Because can you imagine that any Ghanaians can get up and start marching and going to people's shops and things and moving them out and looting the shops, and the police are just, watching. They are doing literally nothing.
That's a very legitimate and strong point to make. It's a legitimate and strong point. And that is why I even went a step further to say that the body policy of South Africa is problematic, and the matter cannot be reduced to the issue of unemployment. And therefore, constructive complicity from the government of the day is something that is a major and legitimate point to raise. But at the same time, in so saying, we also should be careful in the narrative and in the discourse, not to instigate a certain reaction, which is very possible, where South Africans, for example, are indiscriminately targeted here in Ghana and other parts of Africa. That will just worsen the situation.
We understand Ghanaian students. We understand Ghanaian students intend to, organize some protest. You are discouraging that they should not protest.
Well, if it's a peaceful protest, if it's a lawful protest, if it's a protest that doesn't lead us to unintended consequences, where people begin to take the law into their hands, which is very easy because, as I say, understandably, this kind of situations, Africa can invoke general anti-South African sentiments in African countries. But that's not what we need.
It already has, and they have acknowledged that. They have been issuing statements, particularly their tourism. This is not how all of us are. Some of their citizens are saying the same thing and we are hearing that, it's ridiculous.
That we will not go to Africa for tourism. In any event, who wants to go to a country with a situation that persists in that country? So I can well understand to urge our citizens in Ghana and in Africa generally to exercise restraint and allow our government to engage, and also encourage our governments this time around to be tough, because this has become one too many. I recall when during the Akufo-Addo administration, President Ramaphosa sent an envoy to the presidency to apologize to the president and government and people of Ghana following similar xenophobic attacks.
Okay.
I think this has become one too many.
All right.
It can no longer be within the corridors of calm diplomacy and measured diplomacy.
Okay.
It now should be escalated.
So
and as you rightly pointed out,
yeah,
the government of South Africa should be held responsible.
Right. You stay in Parliament and ensure that you exact what has to be done in due process and the expenditure that will go with all of this for us. Thank you very much. Samuel Abu-Jinapor is a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and he's a member of Parliament for Damongo. He just joined us now. Let's return to the studio, but before that, Grace Asempa is one of the evacuees. Grace, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
I can hear in your voice from the voices we heard when you touched down at I was about to say Kotoka, Accra International Airport. You are feeling happy, right?
Yes, I am. Why shouldn't I? Now I'm very free.
Where in South Africa were you?
Okay, I started from East London, that is Eastern Cape.
Okay.
Part of Eastern Cape called East London. That's where I started from. And I came down to Mpumalanga, from Mpumalanga to Limpopo, and from Limpopo to part of Johannesburg. I would say a location in Johannesburg.
For how long were you there?
Oh, there at what's the name again? Right.
How many years?
In South Africa, it's 18 years. I've been in South Africa for 18 years.
18 good years.
Yes.
So you have raised your family there.
Yes, I have a child there.
What were you involved in? What were you doing?
I was doing hairdressing.
You owned one?
Yes. I just can I meet with Tree, or what do you think?
You're doing well. You're doing well. Let's go on with the English. You're doing well.
Oh, with the English, ne? Okay, that's okay. I started from East London. I bought my own salon in East London, which I was operating from. That was 2011. Yeah, I bought my salon in 2011. I operated that salon until 2018. Yes.
You were
armed robbers, I would say armed robbers, they broke into my shop. Also, they came on me in my house.
Oh.
What got me more scared is for them coming to my house. The shop was not so much, decent to be, but the house, for them coming to my house, I don't know what substance they put on me. I overslept. They came in my room, took what they wanted to take. My money, my phones, like 3 phones.
Yeah, we know that violent crime is very high in South Africa, perhaps not as you find anywhere else. But you were living under these threats, and you were okay still staying there?
There is nothing we can do, because this is the case. When you plan to come home, okay, the money that you make, it will not be enough for your everything. You're coming home. The money is too small, because for you to pay certain things, pay rent and things, you know, the money that we gather in a month, man, you need to pay rent for your shop, for your place that you are staying, okay? So looking at things, you won't be able to manage to gather money to come. I tried several times to come home. More especially the day that they came on me, 3 guys. When I was in Mpumalanga, 3 guys came on me with sharp knives, long sharp knives. And I was with my son alone. That time my son was 2. My son was 3 years, yeah. He was 3 to 4 years. No? Is it 2? My son was 2 years, yes.
In recent
my son was 2 years.
In recent times, before you eventually, left there, what was the situation like? Were they attacking your shop? What were they doing to you guys?
My dear, somebody will just come because they know that you are a foreigner. What they do is they will come and tell you, I want to do this thing. Me especially, I'm doing hair and nails. A woman came and I did her nails. So that woman claimed to be a leader of the community, a community leader. She claimed to be, I don't know much about that. So when she came, I did her nails. And 2 of the nails got fungal, okay? So nails doesn't last on fungal, nails. So it comes out maybe within few days. But she insisted I should do it for her, which I did. I collected my money. So she went and come back and say, hey, these nails are out. You have to do them for free for me. And I said, no, the law here, you must read what is written there. If I did your nails, maybe it came out in 2 days or even a week, I can do it. But 2 weeks, 3 weeks, not possible. I can't fix it for free. She told me that I should wait for her. She is calling the match for me. They will come for me and fetch me out. Truly, this woman came to my shop making a whole lot of noise. And she said, are you going to do the nails now? Or I should shout and call them. If I shout now, they are here. If I shout now, they are here. So I have to be forced.
Okay.
I have to be forced to do it. And other people, my landlady, and they said, no, Mama Junior, just do it for her. For peace sake. For peace sake, just do it for her.
Right.
You understand? For me, it wasn't my cause for me not to have a paper. I was following procedure. I was following everything. Since from 2010 that I did my permit until 2017. My permit was about expiring, so I filled the forms to go and renew it. By getting there, they told me that my old passport got only 3 months to expired. So I should use the new passport. And the new passport, I did not register it. So I had to go and register, and it's a process. Okay, I went. I forced because I know that very day my permit is going to expire. Okay, so I forced and went to register it. By getting back, they said to me, no, we already closed. But I came here in the morning. You should have, put me in your distance, that knowing that I came and I'm ready to do everything. I paid. Everything is on a system that I paid. So you're supposed to do it for me.
Right.
But they said to me, no, the time is over, so you should go to Home Affairs and tell them A, B, C, D. I thought it's something small. I didn't know that it's going to take me years. By getting to Home Affairs, they call something letter of course. I should write a letter of course. I did, and they give me it's like a permit, a temporary permit.
Right.
That if a police or immigration if I get in contact with them, I should show this to them that my case is still with them. They are working on my case to get me a permit. Okay, that thing lasted for a year. It lasted for a year.
I know. I've heard several other stories like that. People are seeking to renew, and it takes forever. The Home Affairs, they don't do it for them.
It takes forever,
and then put you in trouble. So
since
now, 2018
until 2026, they never.
Now
and
that
I got arrested.
Oh, sorry.
I got arrested. Then my son was only 3 years. Then I got arrested. I was on a taxi going to buy foodstuff. There was a roadblock and they took me out, asked me for passport. I said, no, I was not with my passport, but I have something to show to them. But that thing, I didn't take with me because, you know, you will be walking on the street and they will snatch your bag. Your case will be gone.
I see.
So I told myself, I'm not going to take it along. What if they steal it? What am I going to show to the immigrations when they get in contact with me? So I beg of this immigration officer, can you please, he accepted. You know what he did? He accepted. He said, come with me in my car. On our way going, he said, you guys want to take our laws for granted. I will show you, I will teach you a lesson that you'll never forget. I'm taking you to the station. He eventually took me to the station. Like a joke. They jailed me. I was remanded for 2 months. I was on a remand for 2 months. I've been going to the court.
What happened to your son?
They will release me because of my son. Because my son was too small.
Okay.
They were supposed to release me that same day because of my son. But they said to me, because we didn't see you with your son, so we are not going to release you.
Okay. So let's cut it here. Now you are home. You got to the airport. You got transport. You got some allowance.
Yes.
What are you going to be doing?
Actually, I just came and I just came and I'm trying to gather myself because I've gone through a whole lot. I have gone through a whole lot.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a place to stay because I'm now a stranger. I will say it like that. I'm not a stranger because being away for 18 years.
But you brought your saloon equipment, right?
Nothing. I couldn't because the thing was so urgent. It was so urgent. They told us on Saturday.
All right.
They told us that we should get prepared on Saturday. So I couldn't even sell my shop. I couldn't sell. I couldn't take, because I can't take all those things along.
All right.
I can't. I didn't take anything. I don't want to lie to you.
So government is going to assist you to resettle the resettlement amount. That should be a bit substantial to help you to start something, right?
Yes.
Okay. How much are you getting? Hello, Grace.
If I can get like I don't know the money properly. That's my point.
Yeah, but I mean, how much has been given to you as the money for you?
The money they've given to me is over 5,000. 5,000.
Okay.
And 500 for the transport.
Right. 5,000. Well, now you need to get a place to stay, and then thereafter you see what you can do, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Grace, thank you very much. We are happy that you are back home safely from all of the trouble, right?
Yes.
We wish you the very best.
Thank you. And that 5,000, I think they also give my child 5,000 because they give also 5,000 to my child.
Okay. So that makes 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. That looks reasonable. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Grace.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So I'm coming to the studio, but Dr. Doke, who is on the Zoom or on phone with us, Doc. Good morning. Hello, Doc.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Good morning to you and then the other panelists.
Yeah, good morning. So from where you sit and what you teach and practice, how are we going to resolve this? There are those who believe that some amount of retaliation will get the South African government to sit up. What do you say?
Right. Thank you for that. I think we are beyond resolution now. The reason I say is, for me, where I sit, in my opinion, analyzing the situations from when it started, and then prior to this event, we had similar events targeting mostly Nigerians. And the South African government, or the state of South Africa, didn't put in proactive measures to prevent such from recurring. And so that clearly tells us as a people, as a continent, that there isn't much with regards to what the state really understands its mandate with regards to protection of other foreign nationals. Protection should be given to foreign nationals the same way they protect the citizens of South Africa. That's what the international law says. So the South African government has failed with regards to that. Now, whether retaliation should come in, I don't think so. There's no need. If we retaliate, then it means we are just joining the bandwagon. That defeats the purpose of our goal of Pan-Africanism, unity, together, harmony, to what come together as a continent to address the very ills, conflict prevention, management, and resolution. And so I don't think we should retaliate.
How about those who want to hold protests?
Yes. I mean, protests, demonstrations, peaceful ones are part of our democratic rights. So we can hold the protests, we can hold the demonstrations, and then present whatever we want to present, to communicate, to whatever.
In South Africa, it is the demonstrations that have led to the looting spree.
Come again?
In South Africa, it's a protest that have led to the looting spree.
Okay, so the demonstrations in South Africa you're referring to. Now, as for South Africans, with regards to their demonstrations, the authorities have permitted it. I don't think they would be able to stop any kind of demonstrations if it should happen, because they are looking at their political interest also. Bear in mind, the political elites want to hold on to authority. If they implement any strong measures against the leaders of those movements, or even attempt to arrest any citizen, it will cost them political positions. This is one of the reasons why we are seeing the quantum of what? Disorientation and then chaos in South Africa.
In South Africa, some of the leaders or authorities feel our quick reaction, even though Abu Jinapor says a bit delayed, in evacuating is bringing them bad name, and they are not happy about that. That's in light we shouldn't be.
Right, Samson. Already their name is being in disrepute. Now, what the situation now with the Ghanaians adds to it is that because of our standing in the international space, because of our foreign relations and our position when it comes to global governance and international organizations and our role we play in peace and security, whatever we say carries weight. That's why they are feeling the brunt. Well, I'm sure that the Foreign Affairs Minister and then the authority would not just end up escalated to the UN, escalated to the AU, and whatnot. For questions to be answered, for people, notable faces to be arrested and then face the consequences, because it's against human rights. For us as a state and as a people, the state has a responsibility, irrespective of their citizens, miles, kilometers away, have to protect them. What Abu Jinapor said is in the right direction. Even we delayed. It should have happened when the second travel advice was given. Right then, the process should have begun. But our state acted very well. I commend this particular government for doing that, taking into consideration the welfare of its citizens abroad and then evacuating them back home. That is the responsibility of a state, a responsible state.
All right. Thank you, International Peacekeeping Training Center. Lectures there, and he lectures in conflict, peace, and security, and that's what he also feeling the Ghanaian pride. You know, as the minister said, Foreign Affairs Minister said when they arrived, he said, wherever a Ghanaian is and they are in trouble, we want to show them that Ghanaians are important to their government. And this will not be the first that he has embarked on. So beyond the celebration, being happy that we are rescuing our people, what should we be doing?
Importantly, we value ourselves as a people. This is not the first time Ghanaians have been locked up in other countries for one reason or
yeah, Bunyapo gave us some of those references.
Exactly. And so we are proud as a people that any time situations like this happen, our government raises up to the occasion and try to bring some support and relief to our people. Particularly, timing is of essence, because if you are not careful and you delay, it has consequences. And if you look at the number of people that have been penciled for evacuation, about 800, and it took us a little logistical challenges to be able to now bring down 300. I've seen some timelines set to bring back the remaining 500. And it's my prayer that between now and the time that they are brought back to this country, we don't encounter or experience any negativity. Once they come into the country, then the most important aspect is the reintegration into the country, like my sister Grace narrated, living in somebody's country for over 18 years and leaving your business behind and coming to Ghana and not knowing where to even start from. He's talking about where to even live after coming back. And yes, governments have tried to give them some resource, but how long or for how much can she spend 10,000 on? Even if you talk about one-room accommodation here in Accra or wherever she gets relocated.
It is not for accommodation, it is for
business. But if you don't have where to sleep, how can you even start a business?
Well,
you have to find family.
Well, some family will help. I suppose that's how you start.
Yes, and so for a country like this, I believe we should be looking at getting some funding for this purpose. The Ministry of Finance, normally when there are disasters, the government is able to devote some resources for this. I believe when we take stock of the kind of people who have come with such a skill in South Africa, it's important that there are some dedicated funding from the Ministry of Finance is allocated to meet these expectations, because there are not many. Yes, 700, 800 are numbers, but if you take our population, it is not out of place to relocate 800 people or 1,000 people in this country with some allocated funding. The next issue of interest for me is...
There are some people who are asking questions. So they say they left the country, but we have been here, and we have been loyal and trying to help the country to develop. And suddenly you are finding money to give them. If we got some of this, we can start something.
I was going to come there to the issue of unemployment situation across, and the fact that we've not had much intervention to reduce unemployment situation in this country. And so legitimate concerns by those in this country that some, as a member of parliament, I have businesses, people coming to me and asking for 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 to do some business. And every now and then I'm giving out money to assist people to do business. And there is no structural governmental support. The YE, whether it is the Ministry of Youth, government throws out programs and the rest, but you don't see it trickling down and changing the numbers for unemployment. So that's a huge conversation we need to have as a people, whether government is doing enough to meet the unemployment challenges we face in the country.
Right.
But my other comment has to do with the businesses that are being left behind. We have an embassy there. How are we protecting those businesses? What information do we have?
Does it look to you that it is even possible to protect those businesses?
It should be. If they are registered.
There are some of the footages we have just shown you. You see that they run into these places, they break them up, Look at it. They are looting.
Yeah, they can
looting everything out of the place.
Loot, but our embassy has a responsibility to take stock of those information, and then
The High Commissioner has said. The High Commissioner has said that they are going to seek compensation and all of this.
That's my point.
But do you think that's really going to work?
Oh, they won't have to pay because we operate on the principle of reciprocity. And government takes responsibility for its action. It is the responsibility of the South African government to protect life and property. And so if your people, out of these unfortunate xenophobic attacks, destroy and loot people's property, and they have adequate reports or data on whatever has been lost, it is a responsibility on the South African government to make provision for compensation.
So when they said we have taken their jobs, or Africans have taken their jobs, and that they want to be able to take over and manage, this is how they are managing it.
Yes, sometimes you think it's high-skilled jobs they are talking about if you don't see some of these footages. And I don't see how difficult it is for they themselves there to be able to run shops, to be able to run saloons, as our sister was doing. So the focus is not really about jobs, as people are looking at.
And again, this is supposed to be just this week in KwaZulu-Natal. Yeah.
Yes. So clearly, people are hiding behind lack of jobs. There's lack of jobs everywhere, not just in South Africa. But nobody is hiding behind nationalism and going after foreigners and saying that we are taking their jobs. So I think that instead of the leaders in South Africa asking for a reputation, cleansing, they should rather take action. They should take responsibility, because this has been a repetitive phenomenon. It's not like a one-off thing and Ghana is suddenly reacting to it. First duty of the state to protect our people. And we have credible fears that our people might be in danger. In the past, there had been fatalities. In 2008, about 60 people died. In subsequent violent attacks, other people have died and all that. You don't wait until somebody dies before you say, now you can take action. So I think the evacuation is well placed, and internally we are all in sync with it. This is one of the things that you see Ghanaian solidarity, where all political actors, take a particular position.
The High Commissioner says we'll do something about these, particularly those who have their own, jobs, saloons, as in both saloons for unisex, both sexes, and other jobs. What would you say they should be doing, like Burma was suggesting, so that at least they will get something that they can, start their life with back here in Ghana?
Yeah, I think that the reintegration process won't be as easy and smooth as, because these are people who have left here. People might have even lost touch with our work ethics, our culture, our system, how things happen here and all that. There are people who will be traumatized. There are people who might even suffer some kind of, isolation and all that. Who have gone outside, and there's expectation of them. You are a bugger.
Yeah, once you're outside.
You're outside, you have been there for 18, 20 years. There's an expectation on you, and you come empty-handed. So that shock, that trauma and all that, apart from just saying that we are setting them up and all that, there must be some psychological services for such people. And, a proper reintegration plan. It won't take just 3 months for people to say, we've started on our own.
Look at how they are beating the guy. Look at how they were whipping him.
It's traumatic.
And it's always as if they want to kill you.
Exactly.
Look at it.
Exactly.
Completely unacceptable.
Exactly. And it's a shame. And this
completely
is so much an affront on our
That's what got the Nigerian senators, angry.
Yes, and there's a cause to be angry, except that we must live above them. We shouldn't go that low. We should be able to tell them that they are African brothers. This is not what we subscribe to.
No, but collectively, we should also find some punitive action against the country of
like it's been reported in Mozambique.
Because until
there are trucks that are supposed to, go through Mozambique, and they block them, won't give you access.
Of course, yes. So as a country, in as much as we are looking at advising Ghanaians, because if we are not very careful, and people also begin to attack South Africans in the country, what will be our excuse?
That's what it's been collectively said, and you agree that we shouldn't allow it to happen in Ghana.
We have been advising
but again, you saw those guys. They go to hospitals and they move people out. They say, if you are not South African, get out of this hospital. They go to people's to schools and forcefully move children who are not South Africans out of the schools. That can't happen in Ghana. Nobody can get up, walk to Kolebu and say, we are looking on Kolebu, who is here, who is not Ghanaian, move out.
Yeah. So that's why I want to think around government, and I mean government looking at all of these things and structuring what kind of sanction can we also impose on the South African government or businesses or something to trigger some effect in that country. You cannot sit back and say you have your people being attacked, you have, because as the Nigerian senator was saying, they also have businesses in this country. And they are benefiting on Ghana's benevolence and sending those things in. We will not say you want to take up MTN or what have you, but there should be a structural way the government can think through and come up with some possible sanctions against the South African
think
government.
the evacuation itself signals diplomatic unacceptability. It tells them that
it's embarrassing.
Yes, we don't accept what they are doing, and that is the reason why.
Because the whole world is talking about that.
Exactly.
That this was happening in South Africa, and Ghanaians are leaving.
Yeah, and
Nigerians are going to follow as well.
And that is first step. But I agree, but it should be at the AU level. We should not take state-by-state decisions.
Our state has asked that they should be tabled at the AU.
Exactly.
It will again not be the first time. So what's the point?
No, for now, we must push that proper sanctions should take place. Because the leaders of South Africa cannot throw their hands in despair. They cannot absorb themselves from responsibility. They can't say that, oh, it's our people who are doing it. We are not like that as they are talking. They must take action. And sometimes you watch some of these things and there are police people who are there and you don't know whether they are preventing them or they are rather aiding them.
Don't you have a sense that the police also get scared that if they try to do something, this kind of mob will kill them?
No, but Samson, we all know how to address crowd violence.
Yeah.
Okay. The state is already in the known as to these developments and happenings. So they have their police, they have their military, they have their other security forces. And this is not across the entire South African state.
Of course, there are places they wouldn't dare take this.
Exactly.
Of course.
So you have to...
Certainly it's not happening in Cape Town.
So if you want to take action, and the government is committed to it, they will be able to mobilize the number of security personnel to clamp down on it. And also, what has been the punishment for those who clearly are in violation of, because it's against the laws of South Africa. So over the years, and we've talked about historical antecedent, this has been happening over a long period of time. So what has been the government reaction and action to punish people so it becomes a deterrent? So it's something the South African government should take full responsibility of. And I think AU has suggested should move in quickly and take some strong decisions, and then we can take it from.
This show is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks, it's strong, it's tough. Safari Valley Eco Park, bringing you closer to nature. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, as you know, Ghana's hosting of the 13th African Games was meant to be a continental triumph, but the Auditor General's report paints a troubling picture of financial and administrative rots. The audit uncovered a whopping 580 million Ghana cedis in irregularities, from inflated contracts and phantom equipment to unexplained payments and single-source deals without justification. The former minister, Mustafa Yusuf, is indicted. The former chief director, William Kate, and former LOC chairman, Dr. Akufo-Addo, have all been cited for surcharge and disallowance, with the Attorney General expected to file charges in court within some 14 days. So we're asking, how did a national celebration of sport become a case study in procurement failure? And what does this audit reveal about our broader accountability ecosystem? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. And my guests who are still here in the studio with us, Isaac Boama Nyakon, who is a lawyer. He's MPFIA, member Finance and Environment, Science, Technology and Housing Committees of Parliament, and also engineer Dr. Mark Oliver Kevo, who is the Acting Director General of NITA, is also here in the studio. Now joining us is Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, who is Assistant Editor, Joy Sports. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Samson.
Right. And the show once again is brought to you by Goldboard Jewelry, pure, precious, proudly Ghanaian. Melcom, your #1 shopping destination. Waylead, your trusted home builder. Bethel Dental, the smile starts here. St. Thomas Eye Hospital, providing excellence in healthcare. And Kel Charcoal Toothpaste, happy smile. Right, so something that was supposed to be a celebration now has turned into something else, and we are trying to find out why it is so. The African Games. Muftau Nabila is here. Let's begin with him, and please get ready, because the things you are going to hear, if you are hearing them the first time, they broke this, story, and in the course of the week have been talking about it. But if you are hearing it for the first time, you may weep. Just so you know, I cautioned you. What is this? What does the audit report say? Why did it become necessary at all for this audit report?
Well, Samson, there were lots of concerns about Ghana's organization of the event in 2024. And most of them, or most of the reactions from the general public, necessitated from the fact that we had laid our hands on some of the contracts that were signed between the ministry and some of the companies that were engaged to work on behalf of the country. And one of them had to do with the renovation of the University of Ghana Stadium, which was $34 million that was spent. And in fact, it would interest you to know that the agreement that was signed was $34 million, but it later jumped to $36 million. And also the renovation of the Games Village, where the athletes were, where Ghana spent about $16 million for that. The construction of the Boteman Sports Complex, where the country spent about $145 million. So when people began to hear the figures, and in fact, the catering for the athletes, which was about $15 million as well, people began to raise concerns about the humongous amount of money that was spent on the African Games. And I did remember a former member of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Sports and Culture, Mr. Woyome, stating that Ghana had spent about $5 million on Wi-Fi and accreditation and all that.
Right.
So all these culminated in the President's decision to ask the Auditor General to conduct a forensic audit into Ghana's organization of the event. And the document was completed and presented to Parliament. Per what I've read and what I've heard, it's been ready since February 26. It was submitted to the Speaker of Parliament. In fact, the people who were mentioned in the report were all invited into a meeting. I was told the former sports minister was invited. I was told the former LOC chairman was invited. The former chief director were all invited to make their inputs into the forensic audit, what necessitated the kind of spending that happened.
Okay.
And I was told this was about 3 months ago when those things happened. So the Auditor General basically told us that there were some financial irregularities.
Right.
And if you go through that document, there are about 15 of them, ranging from the catering services all the way down to inflated contracts. And there are also about 16 administrative irregularities, which are also quite many.
Let's go through the slides that we have for this segment, so that Muftau will take us through. So you are going to watch the slide. The total financial irregularities, as Muftau just said, is 580 million Ghana cedis. 580 million Ghana cedis. Irregular cost of catering services, 33.9 million. Overpricing of anti-doping tests, 8 million. Yes, Muftau, you take us through, and you have all the background details. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So let's start from the irregular catering services. So, per the Auditor General, a company named as JDK was handed this contract, and the kind of services they rendered to the country, they felt were not the right things, because for the catering services, there were non-food aspect of the services they were supposed to render to the country. And that amounted to the tune of $2.45 million per the document. And that is what we see in figures, which is about 33 million Ghana cedis. And also, there's an interesting aspect, because I've been privileged to have laid my hand on the LOC document that was presented to government. That document hasn't been made public, but I have a copy. I got a copy about 2 years ago. And they had indicated that they handed the contract to a company known as L&M Company. And that L&M Company engaged other third parties to assist them render services to the athletes and the officials. And there were about 12,500 of athletes and officials who all came to Ghana for the African Games.
Right.
And the aspect of the contract that was handed to LMM was mainly to render catering services. However, if you take a look at what the forensic audit report indicated, there were other aspects that they were supposed to render that they did not, which is the portion they described as something that is not related to food, and it shot up the figure to about $15 million, because per the LOC report that was presented to the government and the Ministry of Sports and Recreation, it was about $15 million. It's actually $15.189 million per the document I've been privileged to have read. And also, you go to the other aspect of the document, which I found quite befuddling, is that monies from the local organizing committee account were used to pay Black Stars technical team members.
Okay.
That's page 78 of the document, if you read the document. I found that quite interesting, because that is not the appropriate use of the money. As of May 2024, just 2 months after the African Games ended, monies from the account were used to pay Black Stars technical team members, and they kept paying them all the way up to September. And that's one area I found quite interesting, because the money was meant for Ghana's organization of the African Games and not for a different purpose, which is to pay the technical team members of the Black Stars. And then they talk about the overpricing of the anti-doping test.
Right.
They said per their engagement with a certain company in Cologne, Germany, they realized that the standard pricing in the market, what we actually did here in Ghana, because a company was engaged in Ghana. That company is known as Omni Company Limited. That was the company they engaged to render their services, and they believed that they had actually overpriced the cost of the doping. And then there was also the overpricing of the accommodation, and that there comes JDK again, the company that was again.
That's 10 million.
Yes, that was again given an opportunity to do that. And in fact, they had actually even won about 3 separate contracts per what the Auditor General report indicated. And then there was also the other aspect of it, something that, it was 700 pages. There was also the other aspect of it that I found quite interesting was the fact that, okay, let me just ask this question. I don't know, because they indicated selling of accommodation, that they didn't have the license to sell accommodation. I don't know if there's a company in Ghana that licensed people to sell accommodations. I don't know if there's anything like that. But if it has to do with hospitality, they had indicated that about 2 of the hotels, I don't know if there's the right word to use, were ghost hotels. Because they could not be traced per the Auditor General report. So these are some of the things that, and in fact, there's also the other aspect, which is the broadcast, which indicated that they had handed contracts to certain entities without any formal document signed and the scope of work that should have been done. And then let me just wrap up.
That work, I think they sort of indicted the GBC
Director General
and said he should be made to.
Yes, he should be sanctioned.
Some refunds.
Yes, and refunds and all that. It's a tune of like $4.09 million or so. And there's also the other aspect, which has to do with the overpricing of sports equipment and the sporting discipline.
Everything overpriced. Overpricing of vehicle hiring, 13 million. Irregular invoice and overpayment, 2.2 million. Just too many of the vehicle branding and debranding. All of this.
They are all there, and just the latter aspect that I was about to mention, which has to do with the sports equipment. They said there was a certain overpricing of the sports equipment. It ranges from badminton to triathlon. Most of the sporting disciplines, per the Auditor General, there were overpricing of those sports equipment.
Excessive rental costs.
Yes.
39,000.
Yes.
What's your understanding of that within the?
Well, some say, I don't know what actually the Auditor General and his team did, but per my reading of their document, what they clearly sought to let us understand was that there were certain figures they felt should not have been, and that per what is the standard pricing in the market, what Ghana actually paid was more than what should have happened. But if I were the Auditor General, maybe, I cannot tell whether they did or not, but if I were the Auditor General, I would try and get in touch with the companies we engaged. What were the specific equipment we needed and how much it's supposed to cost in the market? And those things would influence
but that's what they have done. That's what the auditors have done.
And that's what I'm saying. That
they check what the standard price is.
And but go to the company as well. Come to the company and ask me, how much do you sell this jersey?
And they are checking some of the companies too, insider dealings. They are looking at them, you rental and all those things. People who are too close to the money, are the owners of some of these companies, rendering services and all of that. That's what they're looking at.
That's actually true. And I think maybe if government decides to investigate, they will know the directors of the various companies that won some of these contracts. Because it's quite interesting to note that some of the people who are actually at the heart of some of these things were the people who won the contracts to execute the job. And that is where the investigative bodies would have
very familiar terrain when you talk about the things of corruption we talk about in this country. And 4 people, as you can see on your screen, do you think it's just because they were leaders, that's why they are taking the fall in this report? Or that within the sports fraternity, what are you guys saying? Dr. Akufo-Addo, for example, why is he there? Professor Amin Al-Hassan, why? What's it?
I think because they were leaders. So for example, the Black Stars payment, Black Stars coaches payment, for instance, everyone can tell that the money was given to the coaches. But as a leader, that's not what the money was meant for. So you've been asked to be sanctioned and bring back the money because that's not what the money was meant for. And there was also the other aspect. If we were to speak about some of the things we had off record, they're quite interesting, because I do not think that these people, in as much as there were certain aspects that they also benefited in one way or the other, which has to do with the genuine job that they rendered to the country. Someone like Dr. Ofosu-Asare, the LOC chairman, he was engaged way back in 2020. He was LOC chairman until the end of the organization of the event. So certainly he needed to be paid. As to whether there were other things that were done beyond the scope of what that was handed to him, that I cannot tell.
Okay.
But if you ask him to refund monies that were used to pay some companies for the services they rendered to their country, if the companies were indeed paid, I don't understand why they should be asked to pay. But if you are a leader, there's a certain oversight responsibility that you've got.
That's right.
And I'm sure that is why all of them have been asked to take the fall.
We have had some reactions, right? We've had some reactions from the minister, Zoom Lion, is it? What are they saying?
Well, what the former sports minister basically said was that he was not responsible for any financial irregularities, and that he's awaiting the opportunity to appear before Parliament and give his side. I've had the opportunity of speaking to people who are close to him, and what they basically made me to understand was that he is a subject of political attack. Let me just put it that way. Maybe sometimes they use politics as the easiest route to change the narratives of some of these conversations. But it wouldn't be out of place, because if you're a leader, you're supposed to account for your leadership, your stewardship as the leader of the sports ministry. So that is basically what I believe he's been asked to do.
Right.
And I remember asking a deliberate question. Why did you use Black Stars LOC money to pay Black Stars coaches? When I was speaking to some of these people, and they said, oh, they didn't have money to pay the coaches, and the coaches needed their money, so they had to pay them until they get financial clearance from the finance ministry to do that.
And your short is a statement from Zoom Lion, right?
Yes.
They say that we completely refute these allegations as untrue. The findings misinterpret operational reality, ignore the distinct scope of services provided under separate contracts, and overlook the fact that all supporting documents were already available to the Auditor General at the material time. Well, some people say brofo.
And in fact, just on that, when I was speaking to someone close to the former sports minister, he was telling me that most of the explanations they offered to the Auditor General were not captured in the report. So some of them feel that the report is a bit biased, and that it could have done proper justice to them.
The auditors, you see, you have the opportunity of the management letter, which they have to do, get your side. But that doesn't mean that everything you say they have to take. They have to make a decision and say, yes, you have explained this way, but we don't take that, we reject it. We have seen evidence that is contrary to what you are talking about.
Yeah. So, and that's why they are saying that the portions of the report was biased, because they felt the explanations they offered should have at least been captured by the Auditors General. And in fact, there was another aspect, something, if you read that report, some of these things in this country, you become numb to them. Because even for the PPA to reluctantly accept, those were the exact words used by the report, they reluctantly accepted sole sourcing of the contracts that were handed out to some companies. But still, they still went ahead and got the job done. I don't know. I really don't know what this country has has turned into, but I'm sure that when they are given an opportunity by investigators to answer some questions, I'm sure they will have better explanations to offer, contrary to what the report said. In fact, I was invited to assist investigations, so clearly I'm sure they will also they'll call them to assist investigations.
As for reluctantly accepting stuff at the level of the PPA, we know that that's not new. If you take the SML situation, the company went twice, they were rejected, and then subsequently looked like there was a bigger hand that insisted that you have rejected them twice. The third time, we don't want you to reject them, give it to them.
But I believe there's something.
Yeah.
Some of these things often happen because as a country, we react to certain things, which is that we do not have the infrastructure. We only wait until we go to win a bid and come and we want to put up infrastructure. And when these things happen, you create a hole for people to take advantage.
Right. So you hold on, I'll return to you. Let me get to my other guest here. For example, when you hear that the Ministry of Sports signed 55 single-source contracts without providing justification, 8 of those were ratified by the PPA after the event had already taken place. People feel something. Yes, Oliver?
In fact, this are too serious to ignore. We can't ignore. Look at the headline numbers, the headline figures. These are too serious to ignore, especially when the report still says there are outstanding liabilities of about 208 million Ghana cedis. If you look at this procurement breaches running into 500 million, and we still have 580 million with still liabilities that we've still not settled. That is too serious to ignore. And it raises a lot of questions because I sit in my office, and to generate a warrant to buy a toner, I know the processes that you have to go through per the PFM Act and all that. Sometimes I even jokingly say that the cost of the papers and the processes you have to go through sometimes exceeds some of the cost of the things that we purchase. So when you are out and you hear that people are able to sidestep these steps and run away with procurement worth these millions and all that, sometimes you begin to wonder who was there to put in place those controls and mechanisms to check these things. I will still want to hear from those mentioned in there, those who must take responsibility, because once it's in Parliament now, unless it's not there yet, but if it's been transmitted to Parliament.
What do you want to hear from them? It's the denials that you hear, flat denials, and we have had 2 of them already. So
go to Parliament and go and deny. Because what we are hearing now are, we know the things people say in public, and then when they have to be put on record, the things they also say. And then we also have our state agencies. I'm sure this does not stop them from also acting. Our IOCO and the BNI and all that. These are serious matters that we shouldn't ignore. We can't say that this is sports, this is entertainment and all that. So we should ignore some of these things. These are monies that could do a lot for the country, and we don't have to let it go like that. Our state
was saying something at the end of his submission where I cut him. You will see that we need to do things and we need to stagger them, plan ahead.
Yeah.
But we don't. The recent, games that we had, we heard them talking about the finances they needed. When were they giving the money? And then it becomes so an opportunity where people can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, even within emergency, there must be a framework to work with. Even when there's urgency, I know there are people who deliberately crave for agency.
Dilatory tactics.
Exactly. So that they can use that as a basis for all sort of.
Because 55 single source contracts, that would be the justification that would be given for it. It was urgent.
But PPA or the Auditor General did not accept those justifications. In some cases, there were no justifications at all. If you look at the report, there were no justifications at all. Yeah. They only came that we want to, procure. And they did not do a background. If you are going in for single sourcing, there are strict guidelines around it. They did not even check the background of some of the companies. Some of the companies were even ghost companies. And these are serious matters. And I think that immediately our citizens...
Mufsa wanted to come in and say something. I'll let you come in. But when you said they did not check their background, some of them were ghosts. Are you saying because they didn't check, they would have known that it is ghost, or that these ghosts actually have voices and names?
Well, if they had been independently checked, you would have realized that no company existed like that.
You mean clearly, PPA?
Yeah, PPA.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yes, that's what I mean from that end. As for those who are perpetrating, they know what they are doing.
Okay.
They know that these are being created. They know that these are ghosts being created to siphon money. So on their side, but I'm talking about the state institutions that are supposed to filter, that are supposed to, make sure that they protect us. We can't stop people from stealing, but we must have our institutions ready to be able to detect, to be able to prevent, and to be able to correct some of these things. And that is what I'm saying. If we're able to cross-check and do, you would have realized that some of these things, there are duplications. The report talks about duplication of contracts. The same thing, they've asked somebody to print a T-shirt worth 7 million. It has been given to another person to print the same 7 million worth of T-shirts. And that is what is happening. If PPA had taken its time, they would have realized that this is a duplication of what you have already brought and you have already applied to seek clearance for.
Or that the auditors are thinking is a duplication where it's actually an addition.
No, but something, just to add to him, even the irregular cost of catering, you would notice that the services was handed to a different entity when a certain company had already been engaged to also render same service. So
PPA requires that you have to go back. If you seek clearance with company A, and later you decide that you don't want company A to offer the service, but you want company B to offer that service, you must go back. It is not the service that you are seeking clearance. The one that you require to offer the service must also be cleared. So you can't go and use my name to take a clearance from PPE and use company B to provide the service. That is also irregular.
Okay. Wama, when you hear these, and of course, if they remain what the auditors say, but often I like to say the auditors do a painstaking job. So we should not be insulting their intelligence by being quick to say, oh, what they have put in there is wrong, is wrong, is wrong.
Yeah, so we cannot say what they put in there is wrong, is wrong, is wrong. And we cannot also say what they put in there is right, is right, is right. Okay, because in this country, we've woken up to such alarming auditors' reports.
Yeah.
And when they were subjected to strict proof, most of the issues have fallen flat. Nobody will be there to justify any wrongdoing perpetrated by anybody. We sat in this studio moments ago when the Minister for Communication named 4 companies whom they have given contract to.
Law firms.
To engage. You saw the names of the law firms. They are all politically connected. Mentioned all of them. Aziz Bamba, Ahiafo, and even the 4th person I wanted to put to him that he's an errand boy, a very close friend of the minister. All the 4 are connected directly to government. Somebody will wake up tomorrow to audit and ask whether due process was followed. And I asked him, he went around and said, the bank, World Bank is a World Bank funded project, blah, blah, blah. Let me leave that there. But the point I'm raising is that even the audited reports that we are talking about, when was it commissioned? It was commissioned by His Excellency President Mahama, isn't it? In 2025, based on issues. The auditors conducted their work, they finished. If you check from those who were named, for example, the former Minister for Sports, he says, and I had to engage him before coming, that when the auditors completed the report, it's the Minister of Sports that called him that he has an audit report before him, so he should come. He was in the north, he flew down, met him, indicated to him that this was an audit report.
That was 3 months ago.
Yes. And he asked him to give him a copy of the report. Up to today, he has not even been served with a copy. His first realization of the copy is what is in the public domain.
I gave it to him.
Here you go. He is one of the subject matters.
You gave it to him, but you know that once it is transmitted to Parliament, they also put it up on their page. Yes. So it's available. If you want to have access to it, you should have it.
Actually, two of the people named, I shared the copy with them because I was privileged to have gotten a copy of it last week, Thursday. So I read it, and I called for their side, and they were like, "Oh, Samson, they haven't even seen it."
How could that be? With them. Samson, how could that be that I have been named in a report and you have not formally
goes to the ministry?
No, I'm saying
it's
that
a former minister, so it goes to the ministry.
No, Samson, you are not getting my point. You are conducting an audit. You have your draft report. You have called me for comments. You've not even shared with me copies of the issues. How do I respond to them? That is the angle I'm coming from.
Your comments are normally on the issues, and the issues are brought to your attention, which you respond to.
I'm saying that the people have not been given the issues in writing. They have formally requested for them to be served with the issues. So you see, I'm just putting this down to let you understand that you don't just see these things out there, go to the streets with them, you throw all these figures there. By the time they are subjected to strict proof, you realize that a lot of the issues would have been sensational. You are talking about quotations of overinflation, and where do you determine overpricing? People, all the contracts you said, had gone through PPE, whether sole source or competitive bidding. Check the time the contract, the thing was awarded.
Important point.
It was we won the bid in 2018. Yeah. It took us 2021 to begin preparations for an event that was coming on in 2023-24. You have to construct stadia to meet them. Car Bank was given the permission to finance it. Car Bank pulled back. Government had to go through Afri-Exim to get the financing to complete these projects. Even when there were variations raised by the contractors, the ministry refused to accept even those variations and were compelled to stick by the 145 million. The variations came to almost 213 million. Yet the stadia was completed at a cost of 140. As to whether you go to the market and do benchmarking, why don't you do benchmarking every day? Go to ministries today, audit all the ministries, departments, and agencies, everything they buy, and subject them to open market price, and tell me how many of them would be same or not at variance with open market prices.
So your point is?
My point is that when you throw these things out there without going through the formal legal processes, ensuring that did they go through the due process? Did they go through procurement? If procurement had stepped on their job,
who has thrown something out there?
No, I'm saying the issues that are being tested as overpricing and the rest, they are based on somebody's benchmark figures.
It's a complete audit. It's an audit that is done.
Oh, I'm saying I'm saying that if I go to Osu today and I secure an accommodation at $90 a night, you can still go to the same Osu, find an accommodation which is competitive and can go for $50 a night.
What was a wise thing you should have done?
If you had the benefit of going to Osu and picking all them, if you wake up today and you want to go and sleep in Osu, do you go through all the hotels in Osu to determine where you want to sleep?
That's as a private person, I have the right to do that. But if I'm managing a public funds, I am supposed to look for what secures the public.
Samson, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong that I'm here to justify that, because I have not even had the benefit of reading the entire report. I just had a copy yesterday night.
You know, you just raised a question and you brought back what Sam George spoke about certain companies.
Yes.
You know, you were very quick in seeking to suggest that there could be wrongdoing.
Not wrongdoing, but to see that these are things
you see
interest.
I'm telling you what I am observing, okay? With that, you were very quick about it. But when there is a report that concerns your government or people who worked under your government, you are very reluctant.
No.
You are cautious.
No. Samson, then please don't read me wrong.
Okay.
I started with a premise, and I stand by it, that if there is any wrongdoing so established, we have the laws to take their course. And I gave the foundation, and you even set me up on that foundation, that what we read as wrong may not necessarily be wrong.
Right.
But also right, and all of that. And we are being fed with irregular cost of catering service, overpricing, of anti-doping, overpricing, until you invite those people involved. Then Muftau said it, Muftau said it, that if you call on me, the person that provided the service, and then I'm able to produce the records, suggesting them, and you take my records and go and compare with where I sourced it from. We don't do doping in Ghana. Do we do anti-doping in Ghana? No. They said they checked from Germany, isn't it?
Yes.
The doping was done in Switzerland, isn't it? So you have basis to do comparative, including where the works were done. I'm not immune to the fact that there could be possible things like that. We are in this country, we read this every day. So we should be able to curb them. But when we run to the open and begin to suggest, taking into consideration, and he made a fantastic point, that if you stay, you have an award of contract in 2018, and you don't act on it, and you come to 2021, 22, and you have to finish everything, do you have time to go and do competitive bidding and all? So whether we do it intentionally or we don't do it intentionally, this is where we face the Black Stars money that they used to pay. When the Minister of Finance was asked release of money for this athletics games, he said they issued a thing in badges, their budget, they release it quarterly. The quarter release that they were given was not meant purposely for the All-African athletics games, but they've used the money to do the athletics games. When you go and audit it later, the same information will come that we had an African Games or an athletics games. We had a budget for it. We never released money for the budget of that games, and yet we are asking them to use money meant for something else to go and do it. And all of these are government and ministries challenges that we face. And so clearly, these reports are there. The good thing is that they are available for Parliament to scrutinize. All of them have the opportunity to go and explain. In fact, even if the Attorney General has reason to believe that there is some causing financial loss to the state has all the machinery and power to prosecute them. And those people also have the opportunity to go and defend themselves in court. So it's a very good exercise. Very good exercise that when the government heard of these things, they didn't sit down, they've gone to commission an inquiry. And the audit report is there. We can take, everybody can decide to take it hook, line, and sinker. Others can be challenged them. At the end of the day, what we need to find out is that what are we doing wrong that leads us to these things? That is the question, because up to today, these things continue to happen. I've worked in the public service for 22 years before coming to Parliament. I have seen reports over reports in other government ministries and agencies, which any day you go there and you take their documents and vet, and you want to issue reports, you will see these things recurring. So if the government is minded, take this report, all the issues that you found which are weaknesses in the system, let's use it as a yardstick to go and correct
the guys
them.
within the sports, fraternity, he used the word. The sports guys, they like these very flamboyant language use. That they are thinking about a whopping 15 million for, is it food?
Catering.
And they are asking themselves, who did you feed and what food?
Let me even give a little, based on what I find, and he will be there too. He indicated, for example, that about 12,000 plus people in total, athletes and officials, were fed. My understanding is that it was 24-hour service, buffet, breakfast, lunch, dinner, because this is international standards. It's not government of Ghana that decided to do that. So it is breakfast, lunch, and dinner buffet for 13,000 people.
It was
over 21 days.
So it was in variation.
Okay.
The athletes, their food was within a certain range.
Of course.
So let's say $50 breakfast, $70 lunch,
exactly.
And dinner was capped at a certain figure. But the officials, their figures were high.
Exactly. So have we had anybody guided by this over 21 days, done the computation?
The Auditor General has done the work.
No. We don't have that. This analysis we are doing in the breakdown, we have it as 15 million. I'm saying, based on the conversation we are having.
And everything we want to do is to challenge the Auditor General. Is that it?
No, Samson, let's not get, you see. But if we also want to assume that what the Auditor General puts there every day, I have challenged the Auditor General on a surcharge and one in court. I was the first person to attack the Auditor General surcharge and one in court in a matter. So
that doesn't mean that this is regular. That's all the time when they do the audit.
No.
In any case, once the audit is complete, unless it is impeached through a proper successful, impeached through a proper avenue, it remains what it is, so to speak.
And we all admit that this is the audit report.
Yes.
But we know that the audit report is also subject to further scrutiny, because people are going to be called to question. And we've sat in this country, a gentleman was said to have received over 400 million Ghana cedis. And it turned out that the person had none, and it also came from the auditor. So we are not disputing the quality of our
that kind of example. That kind of example.
Outliers.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. So here, in this matter, I don't have the case to say that catering service, I'm admitting or not admitting that it is wrong. Okay. I'm not saying that doping, but all I'm saying is that let's learn lessons from them.
Muftar, earlier you had said that usually we'll raise the politics and it will begin to cloud, the real issues are in them. And I was just pointing to, Bwama a while ago, that, even when Sam George gave a reason for how the law firms were procured, he came back to suggest that that's not something we should take, right? Impugning it, but the part that goes to his kind of regime, he's careful, he's not even ready to accept that the Auditor General's report is something we should work with.
I never said.
Don't worry. That's
no, Samson, I reject this opinion. I reject this opinion. I don't want anybody to.
All right, yeah. So from where you sit, and within your sports people and all the conversations you have, I see you have read this thing like your, like.
I can remember some of the pages.
Yes.
Like page 54, where a certain company was supposed to provide condoms for the games, and we had gone to buy condoms again.
So these are legitimate things.
What have you guys been talking about? Should be how to resolve the matters eventually.
Well, from the sporting angle, if you take a look at the history of Ghana's organization of major events, one thing that is quite clear is the fact that people see this as an avenue to enrich themselves. And if the work of the Auditor General is anything to go by, people will begin to get scared if Ghana decides to ever bid to host any major competition, because it will just create a certain perception out there that, oh, they are in there again because they want to enrich themselves. It is important that as a country, we begin to have deliberate plans for sporting infrastructure. And that is one of the things that's going to help us a lot, because if we are going to wake up one morning and decide that, oh, we want to host, let's say, the African Games and we need sporting infrastructure, let's get it done. This is going to repeat itself, and we're going to have the conversation again.
Right.
I remember in 2017 or 2018, Isaac Esiama, who was the sports minister before Mustafa Yusuf, had announced that the government of Ghana was going to construct a 50,000 capacity stadium in Botema.
Yes.
And this was meant to be the games village for the organization of the event. Guess what? As of 2020, the place was a proper bush. I remember my colleague Gary Al-Smith had gone there to do a report. The LOC chairman, Dr. Fosu Asare, was so upset with the Joy Sports team because we had gone to tell the world that Ghana was not ready to organize the event. 2020 was when they actually inaugurated the local organizing committee to oversee the organization of the event. In 2021, there was a massive issue involving AU, UKSA, and NORCA. It was very difficult to even resolve. It took Nana-Addo to travel all the way up to go and resolve that issue before Ghana started planning to organize the event. And that is a major problem that we need to resolve.
So Oliver, and you see, he's talking about these things, and reputations are at stake. And the sports area particularly, often you hear the stories about rot and everything else. I make a confession. You know, when we're returning to the game after the association, the football, they got the
ban.
Yeah, they got dissolved after the number 12 investigations by ANAS, and were being set up all over again. I was privileged to chair the disciplinary committee, and when we're done, they invited us back. I declined because. Often, you know, if you are not careful, then your name gets up in flames. What do you think? These people, don't you think we should give them the benefit of the doubt, regardless that the audit report sort of is,
of course, many of them have been mentioned, of course, because of ultimate responsibility, I suppose. The actual officers who were in charge operationally could be there. So that is the reason why it still remains an audit report. There should be further action on those audit reports.
Surcharges and disallowances are going to happen.
Yes.
The AG is supposed to go to court and start charging people.
Yes, and there could be even criminal investigations and proceedings against some others. But apart from the capital expenditure, where he's advising that, we should put in place our, equipment and everything and all that. Most of these irregularities also borders on operational expenditure. So it is not just about the infrastructure. It's also about the operational expenditure, the things, the services and all those things that happened. So the systems and the controls that are available generally for public finance and all that should also apply to sports. It shouldn't be like these are separate things. And because I saw, for example, bypassing of gift miss. Payment that bypass gift miss over 20 million.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oliver McKevo. My outfit, as always, is by Habels Couture. You can find them at Ijeringano Gate, East Legon. You can call 0200 84 1988. 284 1988. They give you the best of kaftans. And here in the studio also has been Isaac Boama Nyako, who's a lawyer and member of parliament for Efia. Also, Muftao Nabila Abdullahi is assisting editor, Joyce Sports. Thanks to our guests who joined us for the earlier sessions. Tomorrow on my favorite show, The Law, we'll be talking about the community sentencing bill. We spoke about it some time ago. We want to bring it back for you to appreciate, especially that Parliament is going to pass that law. That law is so much on my heart. People get incarcerated, go to jail when they don't have to. Anyway, have a good afternoon. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini.